Story 1. Caught my 12-year-old sister stealing my stuff and racking up $700 on my card. My parents took her side, so I got the cops involved. She has an issue of keeping up with the Joneses. Her friends have lots of cool stuff, and she idolizes those beauty bloggers and YouTubers and wants the things they have. My parents are extremely wealthy but strict. They would reward us with things when we did well in school. She pulled C's this year and asked for an iPhone and was obviously refused. Early this year, in September/October, I noticed a lot of my makeup and shoes were going missing. We have the same size feet, and the makeup items were popular cult classics. I put up a camera when I went to work one evening and came back to check. Lo and behold, she was taking stuff from my drawers and sitting down at my vanity to use it. Whatever, she's 12, she wants to use makeup. I destashed some items I never used, and I gave her a fair amount for her birthday. My other sister and I, other sis does not live with us, chipped in for a Sephora gift card. We thought maybe then she'd stop taking my stuff. It did stop, it looks like, because nothing has gone missing, and I recorded for about a month and only saw her in my room when she went to fetch the dog, so nothing suspicious. However, lately she has been getting packages from Amazon. She's buying Sims games and she's using a Netflix account. She stated she's been winning all of these things, and despite questioning her, she refused to really admit where she got all this stuff from, so I dropped it. About 2 weeks ago, everything on our desktop computer went missing. Looking into the system recovery files, it said that there was a system file reset, something along those lines, at 11:30 a.m. on a Thursday. Mom and I discovered the computer was wiped. That evening I saw my sister on the computer when I left for work. We know she did something, but again she refused to answer. Then today I got my MasterCard bill. It was absurdly high. I paid $78 for a yoga pass and then $10 for something from eBay. At first I thought my card info had been stolen, but the purchases all match up with stuff she has. Origin Canada, Netflix, Amazon, one eBay purchase. All online purchases, $700 worth. I have no idea what to do. My parents are again super strict. Obviously, I have to tell them, but they are going to lose it on her. But I'm beginning to think she has a serious problem. I have the money to pay down this card, but I don't want to. I want to recoup the losses, but how can I get a refund on something like Netflix? I can't. I've already called to cancel the card. I don't know what steps to take next. Update 1. Hi everyone. Thanks for your advice and help. I just want to add in some points that came up in comments. I did get mad at her when she stole from me the last time. I thought that being proactive by helping her get what she wants in her proper way would help, but we did have a nasty fight about it. I didn't just shrug it off. I now realize I totally messed that up. My parents were strict when I was younger, so to me, strict is just the word for them. But for her, they have completely checked out. I am basically her parent. My older sister, not as much, but she still is involved a fair amount more than my actual parents are. I do want to lock my door, but it's where the dog hangs out, and he needs to leave to pee sometimes, so I'm hesitant. I did, however, decide to order a nanny cam for my bedroom. I am still considering the lock. Last night, I came home from work, and my parents had gone to bed, as well as my sister, so I decided to leave it until the morning. But I heard giggling coming from my sister's room, so I approached her and I decided to ask her about it before I talked to my parents. Well, she full out denied it. I had printed my credit card statement, and I showed it to her, and she just said it wasn't her and she didn't do it. I am the person with the mail key. We have a community mailbox, so I was taking in her Amazon packages. They were from the marketplace, and a few of them had the prices on them so they could go through customs, and those prices matched what was on my statement. My dad has a key too, so he probably took in the ones I didn't see, which is why I didn't realize it was such a big problem. I also pointed out the Netflix charge. She said that she was using my other sister's Netflix. Other sister lives in an area about 2 hours behind our time, so I texted her right then, and she said she doesn't even have Netflix anymore as it interfered too much with her doctorate work. My younger sister lied and said she was still using it. I told her I was giving her one chance to admit it to me, otherwise I'll be talking to the parents and I will also be calling the cops. Still, she refused to admit. I even started to doubt myself, maybe she didn't actually do it. I was going over all the charges and realized she'd have to have an Amazon account. I was the one who set up her email address so many years ago. If she forgot her password, my email was the recovery. I reset her password through my email. Not only had she charged $700 in this last billing cycle, but yesterday she bought 2 more things off Amazon. An iTunes receipt, a receipt from a site called the Sims Resource, and a Club Penguin membership. There were still all of the old order receipts. I reset her Amazon password, and I canceled the orders she placed. I emailed Club Penguin and Netflix and told them she was a minor and was not authorized to purchase the membership. Club Penguin was awesome, and they reversed the charges for me. I guess they deal with this a lot. Netflix hasn't responded yet. This morning I talked to my parents. They offered to pay it for me, and I told them that is not the point. I want her to learn what she did. They just dismissed it, so I told them if they don't do something, then I will not be doing their job for them anymore. I will disengage totally from my sister's life. I told them that by choosing to ignore this, my grad school applications are immediately moving out of province. This did upset them because my older sister had gone the same route due to their crazy behavior, so they decided to talk to her. I don't know what they said as I had to go walk my dog, but looks like there's been 0 consequences because she looks fine and is still holed up in her room. My dad just transferred that amount to my bank account, so I'm assuming they just still don't give a damn. I haven't yet paid the card. It is due August 27th, so I have time. I talked to my boyfriend, and he has some friends on the police force, as well as some paramedic friends who know the SROs who do the DRE circuits, so he's going to try and contact one of them. My older sister actually has a planned visit for next Tuesday, so we are trying to coordinate the potential police visit with that. My older sister was shocked to hear what happened, and when I told her that I might do my MDSC out of province, she said she and her husband have room for me at their place. I could even bring my dog if I want to, so maybe that is something to consider. Update 2. My boyfriend reached a cop he knows who actually referred him to another person. He will be coming over Tuesday afternoon after my sister and brother-in-law arrive. After the cop talks to my sister, my boyfriend is going to take her to the army offices which are stationed near the police headquarters. She's going to get a tour of both. We decided to do that part second because she might be more cooperative after the cop shows up. My sister and I are going to talk to our parents about finding her a volunteer placement. My older sister suggested that she might need some perspective, aka, not owning that game is not the end of the world, and some hard-hitting scenarios might be the best way to get that through. I called one of my cousins who my younger sister really admires, and she is going to come talk to my younger sister too when the cops come, intervention style, I suppose. The cop and I talked on the phone just a few minutes ago, and he said that this is not the first time he's done this. He has a lot of stuff he can say, so I trust he will do that on his own. He told me that he often refers these kids to a counselor and that if my sister seems willing, he can refer us too. Everyone is being really helpful. I have decided to not press charges yet. A lot of you are coming down hard on my sister, and she deserves it. I might show her these threads. However, she is still my sister. She is 12. My older sister and I basically raised her. We do not want to turn her into someone with a criminal record, even though yes, she deserves it right now. We have a chance to rehabilitate her versus deciding she's not worth it and dumping her. If I leave and she has no chance in hell with my parents, I still will be partly responsible if she goes the wrong way and I didn't try anything. It might be our house, not just her. We have extremely messed up parents, as you guys have noted. I cannot change their ways, but if I can get her out of here, I will do so, but I can only do that if she agrees to change things. If she doesn't, then the best idea is for me to leave because I want to have a life too. Update 3. My boyfriend reached a cop he knows who actually referred him to another person. He will be coming over Tuesday afternoon after my sister and brother-in-law arrived. After the cop talks to my sister, my boyfriend is going to take her to the army offices which are stationed near the police headquarters. She's going to get a tour of both. We decided to do that part second because she might be more cooperative after the cop shows up. My sister and I are going to talk to our parents about finding her a volunteer placement. My older sister suggested that she might need some perspective, aka, not owning that game is not the end of the world, and some hard-hitting scenarios might be the best way to get that through. I called one of my cousins who my younger sister really admires, and she is going to come to talk to my younger sister too when the cops come, intervention style, I suppose. The cop and I talked on the phone just a few minutes ago, and he said that this is not the first time he's done this. He has a lot of stuff he can say, so I trust he will do that on his own. He told me that he often refers these kids to a counselor and that if my sister seems willing, he can refer us too. Everyone is being really helpful. I have decided to not press charges yet. A lot of you are coming down hard on my sister, and she deserves it. I might show her these threads. However, she is still my sister. She is 12. My older sister and I basically raised her. We do not want to turn her into someone with a criminal record, even though yes, she deserves it right now. We have a chance to rehabilitate her versus deciding she's not worth it and dumping her. If I leave and she has no chance in hell with my parents, I still will be partly responsible if she goes the wrong way and I didn't try anything. It might be our house, not just her. We have extremely messed up parents, as you guys have noted. I cannot change their ways, but if I can get her out of here, I will do so. But I can only do that if she agrees to change things. If she doesn't, then the best idea is for me to leave because I want to have a life too. Update 4. Hi everyone. Thanks for your patience and all the PMs asking if things are okay. I work evening and overnight shifts, so I was basically knocked out until now. Just to clarify a few more points. I technically could be financially independent of my parents as I've been working since I was 14 and never did anything crazy fun. So I have a lot of money saved. I also make about $30 per hour now. However, after everything I had to go through with my parents and my academics, I felt like I deserved to get my tuition out of them. I don't want the cops to talk to my parents because my dad is a conspiracy theorist. He once refused to buy milk for a whole year because he said farmers are drugging the milk they give to stores to actually weaken our bones and make us dependent on their calcium-fortified, more expensive milk. Yeah, anyway, I ignored my sister and family for most of the weekend and just went to work and my boyfriends for the majority of the time. Yesterday, I got up around 8 to pick up my sister and Bill. In the car, we discussed the situation. My BIL is actually a neuropsychologist. He doesn't remember much from his child development, or so he says, but he offered up some points that are similar to what you guys said. The consensus seemed to be that we needed to leave our parents, but only if my little sister cooperated. Today, this was the major sticking point. My older sister said that when my little sister turns 14, we can work on applying for guardianship and moving her and myself to my older sister's province. Because of my parents' age and history of abuse, my sister thinks we might have a case. She has already consulted a lawyer. We had a pretty sad talk about how all my older sister wanted was to get both of us out of there. She would have done it a lot sooner if she had known the extent of the problems. I haven't really told her about my younger sister's attitude issues and my parents' detachment because my older sister is working and going to grad school, and I didn't want to burden her. She said the hardest thing she's ever done is leave me and my younger sister in this house. I told her that she was 21 when she left, and we didn't expect her to save us. She also had not met Bill yet and wasn't making much money, so it would have been way too hard for her. When we got to the house, my BIL and sister briefly said hi to little sis and then went and played with my dog for a bit. My cousin called the home phone, and we let little sister pick up. She said she was going to come over with her dog so we could have a play date. This worked well because it got my sister out of her room. My cousin lives about 15 minutes away, so she was there within half an hour. We put the dogs outside and watched them play until we heard the doorbell ring. I sent my little sister to open it. When she saw the cop, she started crying immediately. The police was super nice. He sat down with everyone in the room, and he told her instantly that he wasn't there to get her in trouble, but he wanted to talk to her. He even had a poster board. He set it up and started talking about a few girls he had known who had gotten into this type of lifestyle. The stories were kind of sad, and a lot of them were similar to the ones you guys talked about in the comments. My cousin told my sister about how hard it was to watch me and my older sister growing up, but we did the best we could so we could make a life for her. She told my little sister that she isn't a bad person, even though she might feel this way because of how mad I was with her, but the lying has got to stop. Kids who lie grow up into adults who lie, and adults who lie don't get to live nice lives. I talked to her about how all those videos she watches and celebrities she worships, they work really hard for that stuff. Sure, they might get some of that stuff for free, but success has a price. I told her that she's only 12 and has so much time to be successful, but people who steal and lie don't get to go that way. I even pointed out that her favorite singer, Ariana Grande, has also apologized for some things she's done, and now everyone has forgotten, and it's not as big of a deal. My older sister and BIL made her a deal. They said if she gets a 3.5 in her first year of high school, which should be easy as it's not an academic school, then she can come with me after I graduate from my BA and live back with them. My older sister even showed her printouts of the house they want to buy so that we can live there. They have 3 dogs and a lot more freedom than we do at this house. The cop explained that not everyone gets a chance to fix things. He pointed to his poster board, which in retrospect is pretty funny, and asked if she wanted to be like them. My little sister was still crying. She ended up coming over to me and hugging me and apologizing. She didn't make any excuses or say anything except that she was sorry for what she did. And that was good enough for me. My cousin and the policeman left and he gave us the referral. However, my BIL has a few colleagues who could do better in his opinion, and he is going to talk to them instead, but at least we have options for someone she can talk to without feeling judged. Then I texted my BF and told him to take her to the Army HQs this weekend as I didn't want her to get way too overwhelmed today. Last night, we put together a plan before I went to work. She is going to walk and feed my dog every second day until it snows. This is how she will pay me back. She will also learn to do her own laundry starting this weekend. We are going to get her a bus pass, and I'm going to teach her how to get to her school on transit. I did this at her age, and it's time she learned. She is going to start studying with me in the school year. I go to the library, and she will come with me. The university shouldn't care as I see it all the time. If her grades go up by her first report card, I'll talk to my parents about getting her something nice, but any misbehavior, and this means anything, the deal is off. She will also hand over all her passwords and passcodes to me. I get to check her stuff whenever I want. If she improves, then over winter break we are going to visit my sister where she lives and have a sister trip. My sister offered to pay for the tickets, but only if my little sister's attitude improves. My BIL drew up the attitude improvements. No more lying, period. If she's upset, she has to talk to me first and foremost before lashing out. She does what she's told, no exception. She shows me all of her homework to be done at the beginning of the week and lets me check up on it. She starts journaling. I used to tell my older sister things and I even used that method to tell my boyfriend upsetting things. I went through her computer and found lots of story files, so I got her a little journal, $5 from Walmart. I think it'll help her sort out her feelings before she lies and cries and acts like a brat. BIL is calling his friends later today. Maybe this is all overly optimistic, but this is our chance. If it fails, but this is my baby sister. I can't just let her go. So thanks, Reddit, for all of your help and concern. If in 4 months it goes badly, I will let you know. If you don't hear from us, we are living it up with my sister's 3 dogs. Now on to the next story. Story 2. I didn't want my sister with Tourette's at my wedding because her loud tics upset me, but after our fight, I realized how my whole life was about her, and now my parents are disinvited too. I, 28F, am getting married to my fiancé, Max, 25M, this summer. My sister, who I'll call Megan, 32F, has pretty serious Tourette's. Certain physical movements and saying haha are her most common tics. But there are others as well. As long as I've been alive, I've never seen Megan sit through a long ceremony or presentation without tics. Not even her high school/college graduation or for any siblings' graduations. Her haha is also extremely loud, bordering on yelling, and most of the time repetitive. I have involved and invited Megan to every aspect of the wedding. The rehearsal dinner, the bachelorette party, and the reception, except for the actual ceremony. My fiancé and I are writing our own vows, and I just want to hear him say them without interruption. The ceremony is fairly long, and I seriously doubt Megan's ability to go that long without ticking. She has said that holding back tics is like holding back a sneeze, only 1,000 times more difficult. The only options I see for her going into the ceremony are A. Letting the tics go on as normal and be scrutinized by Max's side of the family, who hasn't met her yet, or B. Trying to suppress them the whole time. Either way, it would be a miserable experience for her. I have explained Megan's situation to guests who are unaware, but in Max's family, There are several young children and elderly people that I doubt will have tact. Megan was heartbroken when I told her I didn't want her at the ceremony. I explained my reasoning to her about how the ceremony wouldn't be fun for her either way, but she didn't want to hear it. She admitted that she will likely tick when we're reading our vows but insisted we can just pause and carry on or speak over it. I know this is selfish, but I don't want Max to pause or speak over someone. I want him to read his vows just as he wrote them. Megan has accused me of being mean, ableist, and a bridezilla. My dad is on my side. My mom is on Megan's side, and my other sister, 24F, agrees with me but thinks I should let her come anyway. Max supports whatever I decide but says he hopes this doesn't fracture our sister relationship. Edit 1. The kids I'm mentioning went to Max's cousin's wedding last year and were very well behaved, even though their ceremony was longer than what we're planning ours to be, so that's why I'm fine with them. I don't know if this helps, but I'm also autistic and have severe struggles when my routines are interrupted or when things don't happen how I plan them. I have often been accused of being a control freak, type A, etc. Maybe this is just me letting my control personality get in the way. Edit 2. Deleted the previous Edit 2, which was expressing my concern that my post would be removed for talking about violence. This is my first time using Reddit, and I have tried to post to different subs where I was told even an allusion to violence would get my post taken down, and I didn't understand the difference here. Now that I do, I'd like to clarify my biggest issue isn't the verbal interruptions, which would greatly upset me anyway, but potential harm for Megan and other guests. There is a non-zero chance she could injure herself or others. This is the actual crux of the issue. I could possibly potentially handle verbal interruptions, although they would make me incredibly unhappy and uncomfortable, but I don't think I can deal with having to stop the wedding because someone has been hurt. It usually only happens in high-stress situations / when she was younger, but crowds / large groups of people have historically been a trigger for her, and the ceremony would require her to stand in front of a huge crowd, pretty closely to other bridesmaids. This happened only a few times in the past year, which should make me feel confident, but I feel like the anxiety has just been growing and growing, and I don't know how to stop it other than making sure there is a 0% chance it could happen. Even though she said she could deal, she has a history of either underestimating or minimizing how bad her tics would be. She said she could handle her stressors and manage them but whacked me in the face at a funeral a couple years ago. She says she can handle the wedding, and I'm truly sorry if this is ableist, but I simply don't believe or trust her anymore. She is either not being truthful with me or herself about how bad the tics can get. Sorry for so many edits, but I did not mean to communicate that I was ashamed of Megan or cared if Max's family did not approve of her. If that was true, I wouldn't have her at any parts of the wedding since those family members will also be there. Based on her previous reactions to similar situations, I assumed that kids staring would upset her, not me. Stress is a trigger for her, but people in the thread were right about how it wasn't my place to assume and dictate how she would feel, and I messed up on that part. It's hard to balance, reread the previous edit, when Megan does have a history of downplaying / underestimating how bad things could get. Update 1. I called my dad to double-check, but there is a nursery room in the church where people can watch what's happening in the church live on a TV inside. I hadn't known about it because it wasn't there when I was a kid, but it will definitely be on my list of proposed compromises when I speak with Megan. I would very much appreciate if you read the FAQs before commenting. FAQs on my post, January 21st, 2025. Why didn't you suggest a compromise, such as Skyping? I genuinely did not think of them. I struggle with rigid thinking and often categorize things as an absolute yes and no without thinking of any options in between. The suggestions for compromise have been very helpful, and I will bring them up to Megan. How would you feel if you were disinvited because of your autism? If the reasoning was sound, such as they believe the environment would lead me to have a meltdown, then I would understand. What if your child has Tourette's? How would you feel if they were excluded? Since Tourette's, as many of you have pointed out, is genetic, Max and I have thoroughly discussed how we would raise them. We will always demand reasonable accommodations from school and the workplace, but we will not insist they be involved in every single activity that kids without Tourette's can do. If we had a child that was in a wheelchair, we would not insist they be put on the track field alongside able-bodied kids to see if they can will a 400 meter faster than they could run it. We would find an organization that caters to children in wheelchairs and specializes in helping them be active. Our hypothetical child will understand that they can't participate in everything the other kids can, but we will always provide alternatives, and they will never be made to feel less than because of it. Why can't you just say your vows in private? I don't want to. That's literally it. I feel pretty justified in all my other plans regarding Megan, but this is simply a selfish desire rooted in nothing but Max and me's feelings. The thought of doing vows in private makes me unhappy. The thought of doing it in front of everyone makes me happy. You can call me TA for that if you wish. Why doesn't your family consider that her tics particularly distress you because of your own disability, autism? It has never been taken very seriously by my family because it pales in comparison to Megan. If one child is drowning and the other one is just barely treading water, you go to the drowning child first. Why are you marrying into Max's family if they will be ableist to Megan? They have never been ableist to Megan. When I say I worry about their behavior, I specifically mean younger children and elderly people who aren't mentally there being able to stop themselves from staring. Why do you care what Max's family thinks? I don't know how else to communicate that it's not Max's family stares, etc. I am upset. It's Max's family stares, etc. This upsets Megan. This stresses her and increases the likelihood of ticking. She has a violent tic and harms herself or others. There is also selfish option B where it causes a verbal tic, and the consequence is just me being upset. If the kids are well behaved at the other wedding you mentioned, why can't they be told by their parents on how to behave at this one? And now we come to the FAQ that renders the two previous ones completely irrelevant. You were right. I was wrong. I was catastrophizing. I don't care if that's not a word. Several people have pointed out that beyond their parents' ability to instruct them, they may have disabled people in their class or their lives they see often. I was projecting my own personal experiences because children rarely, if ever, don't stare at Megan when she is ticking. However, I honestly realize that there's a big difference between a kid who has been prepared from conversations from their parents and knows what to expect versus kids who see some random lady yelling in the supermarket and their mom snaps at them to stop staring. In my mind, all kids were the same. I would also like to clarify that I'm upset about her verbal tics because they affect me. I am sensitive to loud and unexpected noises, which is exactly what her tics are most of the time. I push down my negative reactions, but if it was just us alone in the room, I would still be distressed by her tics. What are her violent tics? The three main ones I know of are the elbow, stomping, and flailing her arm. Stomping and flailing her arm are just normal motor tics that people are sometimes caught in the crossfire of. With the elbow, she's explained she must elbow someone or something. Most of the time it's just the wall or whatever chair/couch she's sitting on, but sometimes it's a person. The elbow is also dangerous because it comes on very suddenly and is hard to hold back. The most recent elbow victim was the couch at my parents' house. The last human victim was my dad at Thanksgiving. No offense to him, but he has a decent layer of fat insulating him, so he was fine. Update 3, January 22nd, 2025. Additional context I think will help. All three girls are moved out of the house. Max and I have an apartment in a big city that will remain unnamed for privacy reasons, and my youngest sister, 24F, I will call her Mia, is in law school at a university that will also remain unnamed. We're both in relatively drivable distances from our hometown where Megan and our parents live. It's a small town where everyone knows everyone type of deal, and Megan attended a community college where she was already known by the professors and student body. While Megan lives on her own, she is very reliant on our parents. She has never even attempted to get a driver's license because of the possibility a tic could cause her to swerve. Reasonable in my opinion. So my mom drives her to and from work every day. This is not me looking down on Megan in any way for not attending a 4-year, big name like Mia and I, or for needing extra help from our parents because she does need it. This is to explain that Megan and my parents, particularly my mom, are very close. In my opinion, my mom does things for Megan, mostly in her personal conflicts, that I think she can handle on her own. Megan rarely communicates directly with Mia and I. Instead, our mom usually calls us and says, Megan wants X or mentions she felt Y. Our fight about the wedding was one of the few real discussions we've had without mom mediating. So the first person I actually called was my mom and not Megan. I told her that Megan and I are both grown adults who are capable of handling ourselves. I said I will not take anything into consideration other than what comes directly from Megan's mouth. If Mom tells me Megan is upset, I will disregard it. I got pretty frustrated when she steamrolled over my request and threw in her face that I'm the one paying for the wedding, not her and Dad, which I regretted. I said, I'm willing to work something out with Megan, but if they refuse to communicate or try to disrupt our conversation, all three of them will be disinvited. I reminded her Megan was an adult and hung up. I won't copy and paste the exact text I sent Megan, but here are the main points. It was not my intention to hurt you, and I'm sorry. Please let me explain. I want to talk, not text. Things are too easily misconstrued. Your verbal tics have never been a problem for me. I didn't mean to make you feel ashamed of them. I don't want you to feel like we can't talk. The wedding ceremony is a one-time thing. I can explain if you call me. Mom and Dad are not present in the room when she calls me. I have already called Mom and told her to stay out of my business. I want to talk to her alone, and breaking my trust on this will have serious consequences. A list of 2-hour blocks in the next 3 days. I'm available to have a conversation. I love you. She responded, picking one of the times tomorrow and nothing more, but I'm hopeful we can work this out. Update 3, January 23rd, 2025. I called Megan this morning. I'll summarize our conversation, excluding any verbal tics. It's very, very, very long, and all names are fake for privacy reasons. I will refer to myself as Michelle. I told Megan I was sorry it hurt her feelings. Megan said it was especially mean because I know how sensitive she is about weddings and that they're a sore spot for her. I'm bamboozled. I informed Megan that I was not aware that weddings were a particularly sensitive subject for her. Context: Megan and I are at the age where pretty much everyone is getting married. More so for Megan because she lives in our small hometown. Plenty of women and one man she considers her close friends did not invite her to their wedding at all. She works at a boutique and has even encountered friends shopping for jewelry for weddings she wasn't invited to. But I didn't know that last part. Megan does not believe me. How can I not know how upsetting it is when she and my mom have repeatedly mentioned the exclusion to me every time it happens? My answer: well, you never told me you didn't get invited and you were sad about it. You just told me you weren't getting invited. Megan says it's pretty easy to figure out and thinks I'm being purposefully obtuse. I was supposed to pick it up from context clues. The fact that she even said it, her tone when she said it, how many times she mentioned it, and apparently literally everyone else had. Megan cries. I don't know what to do. I just wait until she stops. I remind Megan that I struggle interpreting things like that. This line is from Max, who I consulted, but he was not in the room. I told her that just like she needs some accommodations for her Tourette's, I need accommodations for my autism, and she has to explain things to me, especially feelings-related things, because I need that extra help. Brief interlude you can skip if you want. Megan: you need someone to explain crying to you? Me: this is the first time you've cried about it to me. Obviously, I know what crying means. I'm not a complete dumbass. Megan: I didn't say you were a complete dumbass. Me: I felt like it was implied. Megan: you just told me how bad you were at understanding implications. Me: I can still guess. Megan: well, your guess is wrong. I concede to her but repeat what I said about needing some things explained to me. You said we didn't need to do that anymore, only because Aunt Marlene was such a beep about it. Context: when I was 15, my dad's sister came to live with us and help out. Around this time, I verbally expressed my need for clear explanations, and she was so annoying. Example: she'd stop at a red light and huff, and then turn to me in back seat and say slowly, "That means I'm annoyed," like I was a toddler or something. My parents and sisters attempted with good faith and told off my aunt when she was being condescending in front of them, but they never quite caught on to what explanations I needed or didn't need. I just got tired of correcting them and announced I was fine after about 6 weeks or so. Max is very good at explicitly stating his feelings because his mom is a therapist. The whole family is very communicative and verbalize their emotions. I didn't know you were that upset about it. I realized Megan did not know for the same reason I didn't know weddings upset her. I never told her. Plus, her tics were about at their height when this was going on, and I absolutely don't blame her for not being observant, especially as I do not have typical tells of neurotypical people when they're upset. Now, I explained to Megan my idea of the nursery room and live streaming it to her so she can see it. The next accusation from Megan: "You're ashamed of me, just like my friends are. You think I'm embarrassing." I say no, if I was ashamed, I wouldn't invite her to anything at all. I tell her I didn't want her at the ceremony specifically because the sudden loud noises really will distress me, especially in a typical setup where the bridesmaids are behind me and I can't see them, so I won't even have a warning that it's coming. She says fine in a tone that I am able to pick up on, and I ask her if this is how she really feels, because if it's not fine, she needs to tell me. I haven't even brought up the possibility of violence yet, because that will make her even more upset. After a significant pause, she says no offense, but she feels like I'm just saying this to hide that I'm ashamed of her, that her friends make lots of excuses like that too. I say no, but I understand why it looks that way because I have always downplayed my own issues when I'm with our family. Something else Max coached me on / suggested to me. I said that if she thought I was lying, she could talk to Max, his family, or any one of my friends who can verify my sensitivity to loud sound isn't recent. She says fine in a way that I interpreted as being more mollified. Then I said, I'm worried about her violent tics. She seems more understanding but insists she can handle it. I try to gentle my voice as much as possible but explain that anything above a 0% chance is unacceptable for me. She says it's not that bad, but her tone of voice and inflection is different. I interpret from this she might actually agree with me, but is not ready to admit it yet or doesn't believe what she's saying. I remind her that all of our family are historically bigger and that she works out a lot, which I admire her for. None of the family members really gets hurt when she elbows because we're all around her size, but she has to be reminded that she's a 5 feet 10 inches muscular woman. I reiterate this and bring up one of my bridesmaids as an example. Direct quote, all of the other who have our last names, meaning family, would be fine, but Mary is 5 feet 0 inches and 115 soaking wet. If you elbowed her, she would go down and I don't think she would get up. She laughs a little uncomfortably, but I'm not joking. I remind her of Nana's funeral where she said she would be fine and then ended up smacking me in the face. I said I know Tourette's can be unpredictable, but she's had 32 years to figure out her limits. I remind her that she has consistently misled me about how bad things will be. She swears this time it will actually be fine, that she knows herself better than I do, and it's condescending to assume that she's lying. She also reminds me Nana's wedding was years ago, saying she's improved, and I remind her that the last elbowing incident was months ago. I give up at this point. I am so tired of her lying. She knows she's lying. I know she's lying and she knows I know. I say, fine, you can be in the ceremony if you say you can. But if you hurt someone during the ceremony, you will have to leave immediately. You will be disinvited from the reception. If they sue you, I will not help financially or help you find a lawyer, and I will cut you off completely and not speak to you anymore. You will not get to meet your nieces and nephews ever. If you're truly willing to risk all that, then you must be truly confident and I trust you. Otherwise, the nursery room is always open, and you can watch on the TV. She doesn't answer me but starts crying and says, how can I do this to her? This is the only way she'll ever be in a wedding in any way. No one else wants her but her own family should. It's not fair, and she just wants for one time in her life to be in a wedding. This is a lot of information to process for me, so I just kind of pick out one piece and blurt it out before I can process the rest as whole. Why don't you think you'll get married? She says, are you delusional? Nobody would ever want to marry me. I know this is really insensitive, but I wasn't trying to be mean. It was just my first reaction. I didn't think over it. I just said flatly, Megan, you're being really stupid. This seems to shock her into silence. I continued, you're very smart. You're very pretty. You work out and you're a good person. There are lots of people out there you haven't met yet that could be a great match. Maybe even someone who has Tourette's too. So writing yourself off and preemptively giving up is incredibly dumb. She sighs and says, you don't get it. I say, yes, I do. That I never thought someone would understand me until I met Max. I tell her that she stayed in our hometown her whole life and there's a reason I didn't marry anyone from there. I did something off script which surprised me, but I said, I know she doesn't like big crowds, but she should come to the city with me and Max. I said she should try and meet new people. She seemed taken aback and almost horrified by the thought, so I said something was probably offensive, sorry, and said, there's an 80% chance a homeless tweaker will be doing something way more disruptive than you at any given time. She got really quiet and didn't say anything, so I reiterated my points. I'm not ashamed of the tics in and of themselves. I am worried about potential harm they could cause. The motor tics are self-explanatory, and the vocal tics will distress me and make me uncomfortable. If she wants to bet our entire relationship on her confidence she won't motor tic and hurt someone, she can be my guest. But I'm done. She starts begging me, why can't I get a bigger venue so the bridesmaids have more room and place an inanimate object near in case she gets the elbowing tic? Or why did I pick so many bridesmaids when I knew she would be one and she would be crowded? Why can't I just say my vows in private? Why can't I just ignore her when she tics? Why? Finally, she said she felt like I didn't take her needs into consideration and planned the wedding without thinking her at all. I snapped. I said, of course I didn't think of you. It's my wedding, mine. I have spent my entire life thinking of you and how things might affect you and what you need instead of what I do. I moved this far away so I could stop thinking about you. You got everything. You got mom and dad's attention, all the sympathy, all the money went towards your treatments. I didn't get to see a therapist, just drive you to and from your appointments. When I was 9, you slammed a car door on my hand because of your tics and broke my finger. Do you remember that? Mom and Dad were more concerned about me reassuring you I didn't blame you than my broken bone. Everything is about you and your feelings. Oh, Megan is ticking too much to pack her backpack. You get it, Michelle. I know she threw a vase at your head during a rage fit. But Michelle, imagine how bad she feels. Megan's sitting alone at lunch again. Be a good sister and abandon your friend to sit with her. And now I can't even have my own wedding without making it about you. Megan was silent and then hung up. Something else that was brought up in the comments that has now been resolved. Yes, Max has feelings about my family dynamic but always allowed me to dictate it. Both because he knows I like control and because he doesn't have much experience with disabilities. 95% of things we offer feedback to the other if we think they need it, seek advice, discuss, etc. But for my family, he never really said anything except a variation of, I support your decision. He said he would like to have input, especially as they will soon be his family as well and hopefully interacting with our future children. I can get annoyed because his mom's a therapist and uses therapy speak pretty regularly, and it's been passed on to both her kids. Secretly, I think he thinks he's sort of an honorary therapist because he was raised by one and got treated by another. Earlier in our relationship, when I was accepting his advice for family matters, he would say things like, you seem to have an avoidant attachment style, probably from being ignored by your parents in childhood. I told him in no uncertain terms I did not care to be psychoanalyzed, and that was that. We talked a lot, but the gist of it is that he has had opinions on my family and struggles with his instinct to protect me and his desire to respect my decisions. From now on, I am going to listen to him and take his opinion into consideration when deciding about family matters. He promised to stop the therapy talk and says that was more him being 21 and trying to impress me with big words. I have noticed he doesn't really do it anymore. So, after my call with Megan, I walked into our shared bedroom, and he didn't even have time to ask how it went before I burst into tears. He held me for a while. I am fine with physical touch and affection, especially from him, as long as it's not unexpected. Eventually, my phone started ringing again, and I saw that it was Mom. I told Max that I didn't want to talk to her, but if I didn't pick up, it would become a whole thing. He just silently held out his hand, and when I realized what he meant, I put my phone in it. The conversation wasn't on speaker, and I didn't really care enough to try and listen to what she said, and for the most part, I don't remember what he said after telling my mom I couldn't come to the phone, just the beginning. Well, Michelle's crying too. I think you should be just as concerned about that. In the end, yeah, well, my parents have said they'd more than happy to walk her down the aisle, so you think on that. I told Max about these posts, and he was a little confused but supportive and thinks it's funny how I've picked out names starting with M for everyone. I have not had any more calls from my family, but Max called his mother, very nice lady, and put her on speaker, and she reiterated she'd be happy to walk me down the aisle with her husband. So that is that for now. I find the anonymity very freeing, as well as writing down what happened, so I will update you all as soon as there is an update. Update 4, January 25th, 2025. Max and I have officially disinvited Megan and my parents from my wedding. I am getting lots of support and love from his family. I've got all the advice I feel I've needed, so I'm going to delete this account as it has served its purpose. I'll leave this up for a little while before I do it so people who are invested can see it. Thanks for all the advice and help. Now on to the next story. Story 3. I raised my wife's kids as my own, paid for everything they needed. But when they said, "I'm just some guy mom married," I stopped providing and moved out. I've always believed in a few core things. Working hard for what you have, taking responsibility for your actions, and being loyal to the people you care about. I also learned the hard way, mind you, that loving the wrong people can really mess you up. This whole story I'm about to tell you, it's about how those beliefs of mine got tested and how everything I thought I knew about family came crashing down. It's not a happy story, to be honest. It's about getting taken advantage of, about being used, and about finally realizing when enough is enough. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm going to tell it like it happened because I think it's important to be real about these things. We often hear about happy endings, but sometimes the ending is just, well, an ending. And sometimes that's okay. It's necessary even. I'm not trying to be some kind of saint here. I made mistakes. I was probably too trusting, too believing in the best in people. I ignored some red flags and I paid the price. But I also learned a lot. So, how did this all begin? It started with a woman named Amelia. She was a widow. Her husband, a military officer, had passed away. She had 2 young kids. A little boy named Daniel, who was around 4 years old and full of energy, and a baby girl named Mia, who was just barely starting to walk. I met them through a mutual friend, and I could see right away that Amelia was struggling. It wasn't just that she was sad, although, of course, she was. It was more than that. She was completely exhausted. I mean, visibly exhausted. You could see it in the way she carried herself, in the dark circles under her eyes, in the way she seemed to be running on fumes. It wasn't just an "I'm tired" kind of exhaustion. It was a deep, bone-weary kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. I didn't step in because I felt obligated or anything like that. It wasn't some kind of knight in shining armor complex. It was just I saw her, really saw her. I saw her struggling, and I wanted to help. I wanted to make things a little bit easier for her and those kids. I felt this genuine desire to provide some stability, some support in their lives. I started helping out little things at first, offering to watch the kids so she could get a nap, running errands, that sort of thing. But it quickly became more. I found myself wanting to be a father figure to those kids. Their own dad was gone, and I felt like I could step into that role. Not to replace him, of course, but to give them the love and support that every child deserves. I guess you could say I was contrasting my own values, hard work, responsibility, loyalty, with the situation they were in. I wanted to give them what their father couldn't, not because I had to, but because I genuinely wanted to. Felt right. Felt like the start of something good, something real. And for a long time it was good. I really threw myself into it. I worked long hours not just to pay the bills, but to make sure those kids had everything they needed. Good school, nice clothes, a comfortable home, plenty of food on the table. All of it. I made it a priority to put their needs above my own. I wasn't just trying to meet their basic needs either. I wanted to erase any sense of loss they might have felt because their dad wasn't around. I wanted to fill that void, to make them feel secure and loved. It wasn't just about the material things, though. I was there for them emotionally, too. I went to every single school event, every soccer game, every play. I cheered the loudest. I was their biggest fan. I organized birthday parties, planned family vacations, did all the dad things. And they responded. They loved me back. They called me Dad. Not just Thomas, but Dad. And you know what? I believed it. I really did. I felt like the luckiest man alive. I thought I had created this genuine, loving family. I was so caught up in the idea of it, in the desire for it to be true, that I didn't see the cracks that were starting to form. I was so focused on building this perfect picture that I ignored the warning signs. Looking back, I can see that I was building on a foundation that wasn't as solid as I thought it was. But at the time, I was all in. I was invested, heart and soul. I was dedicated to making this work, to being the best father figure I could be. I poured everything I had into it, and for a while it seemed like it was paying off. We had our routines, our traditions, our inside jokes. We were a family. I was sure that feeling is what kept me going. The first signs of trouble were small, almost insignificant. Little comments from the kids, a bit of backtalk, a roll of the eyes here and there. Nothing major, nothing you wouldn't expect from kids growing up. I brushed it off. I told myself it was just typical teenage stuff, a phase they were going through. I didn't want to see it as anything more than that. I remember one time Daniel, he must have been around 13 or 14, made some snarky comment about how I wasn't cool because I didn't let him stay out late. Mia, who was a few years younger, chimed in with some equally disrespectful remark. Stung a little, but I just laughed it off. I told myself they were just testing boundaries, pushing limits like all teenagers do. As the kids got older, the disrespect became more pronounced. Daniel, by the time he was 17, was a full-blown teenager. He started ignoring curfews, dismissing any advice I offered, and generally acting like he was entitled to do whatever he wanted. It was classic teenage rebellion, I suppose, but it felt different, sharper somehow. There was a meanness to it that I couldn't ignore. Mia, who was around 14 at this point, started mimicking her brother's behavior. She'd roll her eyes at me, ignore my instructions, and dismiss any concerns I raised. They formed this united front against me, making it clear that they didn't respect my authority, or me for that matter. It was like they were ganging up on me, testing how far they could push me. What made it worse was Amelia's reaction, or rather, her lack of reaction. She wouldn't intervene. She wouldn't back me up. She'd just sit there, usually on her phone, pretending not to notice what was going on. Sometimes she'd even subtly undermine me. Maybe she'd pretend to be distracted with her phone, or she'd sigh like I was the one being unreasonable. It wasn't just passive. It was almost like she was actively encouraging their behavior. She'd make excuses for them. Oh, they're just tired. Or they're going through a phase. Or we need to keep the peace. It was always something. But what it really was a pattern of enabling their disrespect. She was letting them get away with it, and in doing so, she was eroding my authority and making me feel increasingly isolated. I started to feel like I was the only one who cared about setting boundaries, about teaching them right from wrong. I was starting to question Amelia's motives. Was she really this oblivious? Or was she deliberately undermining me? I had my first real wake-up call around this time, but I still didn't fully grasp what was happening. The real breaking point, the moment when everything started to fall apart, happened one night. Daniel came home way past his curfew. I'm talking hours late, and he hadn't called or texted or anything. I was worried sick, of course, but when he finally strolled in, he acted like it was no big deal. I asked him calmly, I might add, where he had been, just a simple question wanting some accountability. He didn't even look at me. He just said, "Relax. I'm not a kid." That was it. No apology, no explanation, just a dismissive brush off. And then he said, "You're not my real dad. Stop acting like you own me." Just like that. All those years of love and care and support thrown back in my face. It was like a punch to the gut. Mia, who was standing there, chimed in, "Yeah, you're just some guy Mom married." As if all the years we'd spent together, all the memories we'd made, meant absolutely nothing. Something inside me just broke. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was more like a profound sense of disillusionment. And the worst part? Amelia didn't say a word. She just stood there, silent. Her silence was the ultimate betrayal. It confirmed everything I had been starting to suspect, that I was nothing more than a convenience to them, a provider, someone to take care of the things their real dad couldn't. It was the defining moment, the moment I realized that the family I thought I had built was a lie. It wasn't long after that first incident that it happened again. This time it was Mia. She had made a mess in the kitchen, and I asked her to clean it up. Simple enough, right? basic responsibility. But instead of doing it, she just looked at me and said, "Why don't you do it? It's your house, isn't it?" That stung. It wasn't just the disrespect. It was the way she said it, like I was some kind of servant, like my only purpose was to clean up after them. It highlighted my outsider status, reducing me to nothing more than a provider, a cleaner. It was a deliberate attempt to belittle me, to make me feel small. And then Daniel, as if on cue, chimed in again with the same line. "You're not even our real dad." It was like they were tag-teaming me, reinforcing their rejection, making sure I understood my place, or rather, my lack of place in their lives. But this time, it was Amelia's reaction that really sealed the deal. She didn't yell, didn't get angry. She just looked at me casually, without even looking up from her phone, and said, "They have a point, Thomas. Maybe you should back off." That was it. That was the moment I knew it was over. It wasn't just the children's disrespect anymore. It was Amelia's explicit agreement with them. She was siding with them against me, the person who had dedicated years of his life to caring for them. It wasn't a moment of anger or even hurt. Not really. It was a moment of clarity. I finally understood. I was done. There was no going back. This wasn't a family. It was a sham, and I was finally ready to walk away. It was a quiet realization, a calm acceptance of the truth. I was no longer fighting to hold on to something that wasn't real. I was ready to let go. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I stopped. I stopped giving, stopped caring, stopped trying. It wasn't a sudden, impulsive decision. It was a deliberate, conscious choice. I just withdrew. I stopped providing for them. No more rides, no more allowances, no more protection, no more advice, no more concern. I let them experience the consequences of their own actions. It was a complete 180 from how I had been for years. I had always been there for them, no matter what. Now I was gone. It hurt, I won't lie. It went against every instinct I had. I had invested so much of myself in this family, and it was incredibly painful to just walk away. But I knew it was necessary. I had to protect myself. I knew it wouldn't be easy. I knew they would react, that they would try to push back. But I was prepared for that. I had reached my limit. I had given them everything I had, and they had thrown it back in my face. I was done being the doormat. First, they laughed. They mocked me, made sarcastic comments, smirked at me whenever I walked by. They thought they had won. They thought they didn't need me. They were relying on Amelia, thinking she could provide everything I had been providing. They were wrong. They'd make these little jabs, mimicking my instructions, making fun of the way I used to try to set boundaries. They'd say things like, "Oh, are we breaking the rules?" with this exaggerated emphasis, rolling their eyes and smirking at each other. It was like they were trying to provoke me to get a reaction out of me. Amelia? Oh, she made sure to pick up my slack. She funded their little shopping trips, made sure their weekends were still filled with fast food outings and unnecessary spending. She kept them comfortable, kept them cocky, and kept feeding them the idea that they didn't need me. But I knew it wouldn't last. I knew Amelia's resources were limited. She didn't have the kind of income one did. She couldn't keep up that level of spending forever. So I remained quiet. I let them have their fun. I let them think they were getting away with it. I knew the reality check was coming. I didn't engage. I didn't argue. I didn't react. I just observed, silently waiting for the inevitable. It was a strange kind of patience, born out of the certainty that I was right. I knew their arrogance was built on a shaky foundation, and I knew that foundation would eventually crumble. I just had to wait it out. It was a waiting game. And then, slowly but surely, things started to change. The shopping trips became less frequent. The fast food outings became fewer and farther between. New clothes stopped appearing. Small changes at first, but noticeable. Then bigger problems started to arise. School fees became a concern. Daniel got into some trouble at school, and Amelia didn't know how to handle it. Mia broke her phone, and there was no money to fix it. I remember the first morning Daniel missed the ride I used to give him to school. He'd always taken it for granted, never even bothering to say thank you most of the time. Now he was on his own. He ended up having to run for the bus, and from what I heard, he barely made it, huffing and puffing and completely out of breath. It's a small thing, I know, but it was symbolic. It was the first real crack in their comfortable world. And I'll admit, I felt a sense of satisfaction. Not joy exactly, but a quiet vindication. I knew what it was like to struggle, to have to work for everything you have. I remembered those days when I was young, having to hustle to make ends meet. They, on the other hand, had always had everything handed to them. I didn't say anything, of course. I just watched. I saw the frustration on Mia's face when she realized her broken phone wasn't going to be magically replaced. I heard her complaining to Amelia, and I heard Amelia's increasingly flimsy excuses. She was starting to run out of money, and she was starting to realize that she couldn't provide everything I had. That same day, Mia had a complete meltdown, whining about how unfair it was that she couldn't get her phone fixed. Amelia finally admitted, in a voice that was barely above a whisper, that she didn't have the money right then. It was a small admission, but it was a significant one. It was the first time she had openly acknowledged the limitations of her resources. It was the beginning of the end of their denial. The reality of their situation was starting to sink in. They were starting to understand that their privileged lifestyle had been dependent on me, on the person they had so readily dismissed and disrespected. The free ride was over, and they were finally starting to feel the bumps in the road. It was a harsh awakening, but a necessary one. My absence was making its presence felt. It wasn't long after the phone incident that Amelia finally confronted me. She was angry, of course. She accused me of being childish, of neglecting my responsibilities. That word, responsibilities, stuck with me. It revealed how she truly saw me. Not as a partner, not as a father figure, but as someone who had obligations to fulfill, a provider, a walking ATM. She went on, blaming me for everything that was going wrong. She said I was abandoning them, that I was being selfish, that I wasn't acting like a man. She tried to make me feel guilty, to make me feel like I was the bad guy. It was all projection, of course. She was deflecting her own failures onto me. I let her rant. I let her get it all out. And then, when she finally paused for breath, I asked her a simple question. I asked her why she had never defended me, why she had always sided with the children even when they were being disrespectful. I asked her why she had allowed them to treat me the way they did. And that's when it happened. That's when the truth finally came out. She sneered, and I mean sneered, and said, "Because I agree with them, Thomas. You were never really their father." It was like a slap in the face, but it was also a confirmation of everything I had suspected. But it didn't stop there. She went further. She actually admitted that she had told the children not to let me control them. "I told them not to let you control them," she said. "I raised them alone before you, and I can do it again." That was the real kicker. It wasn't just passive inaction. It was deliberate, long-term undermining. She had actively encouraged their disrespect, poisoned their minds against me. Daniel and Mia were standing in the hallway, watching the whole thing, arms crossed, smug little looks on their faces. It was like they were enjoying the show. And in that moment, I thought, this is it. This is who they really are. Not the sweet, innocent children I had tried to love and care for, but spoiled, entitled brats enabled by their manipulative mother. Despite the pain, despite the betrayal, I felt a sense of relief. It was over. The charade was finished. I had my answer. There was no ambiguity, no room for doubt. I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I had made the right decision to walk away. The truth was ugly, but it was also liberating. I was finally free. But things got worse before they got better. The kids, fueled by Amelia's anger and their own sense of entitlement, started acting out even more. It started with small things. My personal belongings would go missing. Then some of my important work files disappeared from my computer. I started to suspect they were messing with me, but I didn't have any proof. Then it escalated. One morning, I found my car keyed, a long, deep scratch running down the side. That was when I knew I had to do something. I installed security cameras discreetly inside and around the house. I didn't tell anyone, not even Amelia. I just wanted to gather evidence. And I got it. A few days later, I caught them on camera. Daniel and Mia in my closet. They were laughing, tearing up my clothes, shredding them with scissors. It was a deliberate act of vandalism. I didn't confront them. I didn't yell or scream. I just kept quiet. I documented everything. I saved the video footage. I took photos of the damage. I gathered all the threatening texts they had sent me, all the evidence of their escalating hostility. I was playing along, letting them think they were winning, while I was secretly preparing for my departure. I knew I needed to protect myself, not just emotionally, but legally. I knew this was going to get ugly, and I wanted to be prepared. I was building my case, gathering the ammunition I would need to fight back if it came to that. It was a sad and pathetic situation, but I was determined to handle it with as much dignity and composure as I could muster. I was not going to stoop to their level. I was going to be smart, strategic, and silent. The next step was seeing a lawyer. I explained the whole situation, showed him all the evidence I had gathered. He listened patiently, nodding occasionally, and when I was finished, he assured me that I had a strong case. We discussed divorce, and he even suggested a restraining order given the escalating hostility of the children. I also filed a police report about the property damage. It felt strange reporting my stepchildren to the police, but I knew it was necessary. I needed to create an official record of their behavior to protect myself from any future accusations or legal challenges. It was another step in the process of severing ties, of disentangling myself from this toxic situation. Then, one afternoon, while Amelia and the kids were out, I packed a bag. I didn't take much, just the essentials, the things that really mattered to me. I left everything else behind. The furniture, the appliances, all the material possessions I had accumulated over the years. They weren't important. What was important was my freedom, my peace of mind. I left an envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside were the divorce papers, along with copies of all the supporting documents. The police report, the photos of the damage, the screenshots of the threatening texts. It was a formal act of separation. There was no going back. I walked out of that house and I didn't look back. I got in my car, the one with the long scratch down the side, and I drove away. I didn't have a plan, not really. I just knew I needed to get out, to escape the toxic environment I had been living in. The final step was financial. I closed all the joint accounts, removed Amelia's access to my funds. It was a harsh move, I know, but it was necessary. I had to cut off her ability to continue supporting the children's entitled behavior. I had to make it clear that the gravy train had stopped. It was the final severing of ties, the ultimate act of withdrawal. It was over. As expected, Amelia went ballistic. She called me repeatedly, leaving furious voicemails, accusing me of being a coward, of abandoning them, of being a terrible person. She claimed she could manage without me, that she didn't need my money, that she would be better off without me. It was all bluster, of course. She was in denial, refusing to accept the reality of the situation. I didn't answer her calls. I didn't respond to her texts. I just blocked her number. I refused to engage in any further conflict. I had said my piece. I had taken my stand, and I was done. I needed to focus on my own well-being, on building a new life for myself. Then the children started messaging me. At first, it was the same kind of casual, arrogant messages they had been sending before, but gradually the tone changed. They started to sound worried, even regretful. They apologized for their behavior, admitted that things were difficult, that they were struggling without my support. Finally, I received a message from Mia, the younger one. It was just 3 words, "I miss you." It was a significant shift, but it was too late. The damage was done. The trust was broken. I couldn't go back even if I wanted to. I remained silent. I didn't respond. I recognized their regret, but I stood firm in my decision. I had learned a painful lesson, and I wasn't going to repeat my mistakes. I had given them everything I had, and they had thrown it back in my face. I was done. My silence was my answer. It was my way of saying, "You made your choice, and now you have to live with the consequences." So that's my story. It's not a pretty one, but it's a real one, and I learned some valuable lessons from it. The biggest one: never, ever let people take you for granted. Never beg for respect. Never waste your energy on people who don't value you. And when you're being used, when you're being disrespected, walk away. Don't hesitate. Don't look back. It's a hard lesson to learn, and it's even harder to put into practice, but it's essential for your own well-being, for your own self-respect. You deserve to be treated with kindness, with respect, with love. And if you're not getting that, you have the right, the obligation to walk away. Some people only realize your value once you're gone, and by then, it's too late. It's a sad truth, but it's a truth nonetheless. Don't wait for them to realize your worth. Know your worth yourself and act accordingly. It's not about being selfish. It's about being self-aware. It's about protecting your heart, your mind, and your soul. Thanks for reading. I hope my story can help someone out there who might be going through something similar. Remember, you're not alone, and you deserve to be happy. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Choose yourself. Now on to the next story. Story 4. My stepsister scheduled her wedding on the same day as mine, and my dad chose to walk her down the aisle instead of me. But she uninvited him at the last minute, so he showed up at my wedding. It's been a while since this incident has been on my mind, and I really hope I can get some advice and suggestions from all of you here on Reddit. Like every other girl, I had big dreams of how my wedding would be. I imagined everything as flawless as it could have been, and it was totally picture perfect. But all of that fell to pieces the moment my father came to the wedding. You might wonder why my father's entry would destroy my wedding day. Well, this is what my story is about. To make all of this mess a little more understandable, let me give you some context and an overview of my family tree. Initially, it was just my mom, dad, and I, but that changed when I turned 16, and my parents got divorced and I started living with just my mom. Within a year, my dad was married to another lady. Since then, the family just became bigger and bigger, as my stepmother also had 2 kids, Lily and Olive. 2 years later, my mother also got married, and now I also have a stepdad. I wish I could say that we all became one big happy blended family, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Don't get me wrong. I am very happy for my parents that they were able to find their soulmates. My stepmom was and is still very nice, and my stepdad has also been as involved as he could have been. But all my life, I felt like a secondary person who was just a side character to everybody else's story. It all started with my dad getting remarried. As a kid who grew up in a small family, I always believed in the motto, the bigger, the better when it came to families, and I thought that I could befriend Lily, my stepmom's daughter, as she was also around my age. But she always seemed a little disinterested in talking to me, so I stopped trying after some time. I did not hold any grudges for this because I could understand why someone would be a little hesitant to become friends with their new stepfather's daughter. But my dad, on the other hand, wanted Lily to feel comfortable around him, which was again a good thing since they would be soon living together. What I never knew was that this new relationship was developing at the cost of losing another. The signs of Dad's changing priorities were subtle at first, but they quickly became impossible to ignore. It started small, with forgotten promises and missed events. The standing father-daughter ice cream dates we'd had every Friday since I was 5 suddenly became rare, then stopped altogether. When I asked about it, Dad would ruffle my hair and say, "Next week, princess, I promise." But next week never seemed to come. Then came the milestones. My first big debate tournament in junior year. I scanned the audience hoping to see him, but his seat remained empty. When I called him afterward, he answered distractedly, apologizing and explaining that he had to help Lily with her science project meltdown. And then this became a never-ending pattern with him. My high school graduation. Dad showed up late, having come straight from Olive's dance recital. My college acceptance. He was too busy helping Lily with her college applications to celebrate with me. But this wasn't the worst of it. The final straw came during my sophomore year of college. I'd been selected for a prestigious internship at a major news network in New York, a huge stepping stone for my journalism career. The day before I was supposed to fly out, my appendix ruptured. I woke up in the hospital in pain to find only my mom by my side. Dad was nowhere to be seen. When I asked Mom, she just told me that he couldn't come because something came up. I was so hurt because what could have been so important that he couldn't come for his daughter, who not only is in physical pain but also lost a job that she worked so hard for. Well, I got the answer to this a month later. Dad decided that Mom and I should have dinner at his place for old time's sake, especially because I had been ignoring him ever since my surgery. When we got there, we realized it was not only going to be 3 of us, but my stepmom and her kids as well. I'll be honest, after everything that had happened, I was a little jealous of Lily and hated that she had her real dad and also my dad available for her every minute of the day. But I controlled my anger and decided to at least pretend to be nice to everybody. However, all of that changed the moment my father had the audacity to say that it was very rude of me to not respond to his calls and texts in the last month. I reminded him that I was going through the most difficult time of my life, and he was not there. He said that he was busy and had other things to deal with. And I later got to know what was so important that he couldn't go to the hospital to see his sick daughter. If you haven't guessed it yet, it was again about Lily. Apparently, she and her boyfriend broke up that day, and she had a meltdown. That was the last time my dad and I talked for a while. I know everything till now might seem a little off topic, but believe me, you'll need to know all of this stuff so that you can see where I'm coming from. Anyway, after that dinner, I returned to college and very soon also found an internship. I couldn't go back home for a long time, and that meant that I had 0 conversations with my dad. As the years passed, the distance between us grew. I saw him less and less, our conversations becoming shorter and more superficial. Meanwhile, his relationship with Lily flourished. He was at every one of her college events, cheering her on from the sidelines. When she landed her first job out of college, he threw her a big party. I found out about it on Facebook. So all of this just made me question, what had I done to be put on the sidelines my whole life? On the brighter side, I also met Stan at one of the internships I was part of. What started as a sweet date turned into a committed relationship very soon. We graduated together and then also got our jobs around the same time. Stan was always so sweet and supportive, and because of that and many more reasons, I didn't think twice to say yes when he proposed to me. I was finally building a life of my own where I did not feel like someone on the sidelines. Mom was thrilled, of course. She immediately threw herself into wedding planning mode, offering to help with every detail. But when I called Dad to tell him, his reaction was lukewarm at best. He again seemed distracted, so before he could say that he was needed elsewhere, I hung up. It was one of the biggest moments of my life, and he couldn't even give me 5 minutes of his undivided attention. After much discussion and planning, we set our wedding date for exactly 5 months later. We sent all our relatives save-the-date cards, and the majority of them RSVP'd yes, even my dad and his family. But I still had a secret I hadn't told Dad. I wanted him to walk me down the aisle. Despite everything that had happened, he was still my father, and traditions matter to me. I hoped that my wedding day would be a chance for us to reconnect, to heal some of the wounds that had festered over the years. So I had planned that a month before the big day, I would surprise him with the news and ask him to walk me down the aisle. And that's what I did. But I didn't know that I was about to be surprised by my dad and his beloved stepdaughter. I called Dad and started by asking how he was doing, and he said that he is doing great and is over the moon now that his daughters are getting married. I thought I heard him wrong, so I confirmed what he meant by daughters. And what came next shook me to the core. Lily was also getting married, but that wasn't the news that got me. She was getting married on the same day, the same month as my wedding day. Not a single word came out of my mouth because how could my own dad be okay with this? And why would Lily do this to me when she knew I was getting married that particular day? I chose the day 5 months in advance, and somehow she also felt the need to get wed on the same day. I'll be honest, even though I was jealous of Lily as a confused teen, I never blamed her for anything. But at that moment, I felt like all this time she had tried to steal my father and hog attention. I asked Dad if he was okay with these 2 weddings on the same date, and he simply said that Lily met the love of her life a month ago and couldn't wait to get married. And as her dad, he was going to be supportive of that. Distracting myself from this frustrating news, I questioned Dad that he would surely be attending my wedding, right? Because I wanted him to walk me down the aisle. But then came the next blow. Lily had also asked him to walk her down the aisle, and my dad had agreed to do so. I was enraged. Why was she doing this? I never hurt Lily and was always nice to her. Clearly, the feelings were not mutual. I could have ignored all of this, But I couldn't ignore how nonchalant my father was about all of this. He thought that he could simply just drop another meaningless, sorry, and get away with it. I simply said, Dad, I am done with this disappointing back and forth every time, and I hope this is the last time we ever talk. Before he could say another word, I hung up. When my wedding day finally came, I had come to terms with my dad and some other relatives not being there, since Lily had also invited many of them. I decided I wouldn't let it ruin my big day, and I was determined to enjoy it with my other family and friends. Also, my stepdad found out about what happened with my dad, and he offered to walk me down the aisle if I wanted him to. I could not have been happier and was thankful to have a father figure who cared. My stepdad and I didn't get to spend much time together when he first joined our family because I was mostly away at college. But he was always kind to me and would call me from time to time to ask how I was doing. So finally, everything was lining up just right. Then came the day of the wedding. I was very excited and a little bit jittery about everything. Fortunately, Mom and my stepdad had taken care of everything. The day was unfolding exactly as I'd hoped, until it wasn't. About 2 hours before the ceremony, my dad appeared out of nowhere. I was busy getting ready with my bridesmaids, but he demanded that he wanted to have a chat with me. I was irritated but decided to listen to what he had to say. As soon as he entered the room, he ran to hug me and started complimenting me, but I could tell that was not what he was there for, so I asked him to get to the point. And then came another shocking news. Apparently, at the last moment, Lily felt that it would be much better if her bio dad walked her down the aisle. When Dad tried to argue about her last-minute changes, she made a snarky comment that he should feel lucky that he was still invited to the wedding. Dad, being Dad, started listing out everything he has done for her till now, and Lily was not one to take any of his attitude, so she wanted him to leave as soon as possible because she did not want any nuisance because of him. Listening to all that happened, I felt a little bad for Dad because he gave his all to Lily, and now he was uninvited to be part of her special day. But at the same time, a tiny part of me also felt a tinge of satisfaction. It was like my dad was finally getting a taste of what it felt like to be ignored by someone he cared about. Regardless, I consoled Dad in the best way I could and told him that he was welcome to attend my wedding and that we would always have a place for him. He instantly felt better and said that he was happy that he could still walk his daughter down the aisle. I froze. Where did he get that from? I quickly explained that while he could come to the ceremony and the reception afterward, my stepdad was going to walk me down the aisle. We had already planned it that way. He definitely did not take it well. He got up and started shouting stuff like, "Why would my stepdad do that when he was here?" I told him to calm down so that we could talk about this like adults, but he didn't care. Dad started guilt-tripping me by saying that both of his daughters, whom he took care of, were erasing him from their life. On any other day, I would have also screamed my heart out and called him out on everything he had not done for me. But I remained calm as I was about to get married, and I didn't want him to ruin my happy day. But Dad had something else in his mind. He ran out of the room and started shouting my stepdad's name. Before I knew it, my stepdad heard the commotion and came to investigate. The moment he stepped into the room, my father lunged at him. Security rushed inside, pulling the two men apart. Stan, my fiancé, stepped in too and told the guards to escort Dad. I was appalled. The one day I thought of my life that could have been about me, surrounded by my loving friends and families, was also destroyed. My bridesmaids tried to console me and told me to get back to getting ready. Stan, being the best partner ever, offered that if I didn't feel up to it, then he would understand. But we had put a lot of thought and effort into the preparations and decided that we would move forward with the ceremony. An hour later, we were married and had a great after-party. Even though everything happened very smoothly, I was a little bit out of my head the whole time, but we still did the best we could have done. Nothing else mattered now other than the fact that I was happily married. A few weeks after the wedding, I decided to meet up with my dad. Part of me wanted closure, and the other part hoped we could salvage something from our shattered relationship. We agreed to meet at a quiet coffee shop. As soon as I saw him, I could tell that this was not going to be easy. The first words out of his mouth should have been, "I'm sorry," but he said, "Can you be a little quick, honey? Something urgent has come up." And honestly, I was ready for it. I started by laying it all out, that I was done with his antics and he better buckle up for what I was going to say. I started with how unfair it was that he didn't protest his stepdaughter having her wedding on my date, and how hurt I felt that he always seemed to prioritize Lily over me. I told him how his stupid scene had destroyed the day that I dreamt of, and I had to put up a brave face for everyone's sake. I didn't hold back. I needed him to understand the full impact of his actions, or rather, his inactions. He listened quietly, which was surprising, but as soon as I finished, he launched into a classic guilt trip. He started talking about how hard it was for him to juggle two families, how he tried his best to be there for everyone, and how he felt unappreciated. Then came the kicker. He said he thought I was being too harsh and that maybe I should consider how difficult things were for him and Lily, especially after her last-minute decision to have her biological dad walk her down the aisle. It was like he completely missed the point of our conversation. He even had the nerve to suggest that I might have overreacted to the whole situation, implying that my wedding wasn't the only important thing happening that day, and it was not that big of a deal. I was stunned. It felt like I was talking to a wall this whole time, and he didn't get a single word I said. It was as if my feelings were less valid because he was having a hard time managing his commitments. I left that meeting feeling more confused and hurt than ever. So, I'm turning to you for some perspective. Am I the AITA for being upset that my dad chose to prioritize his stepdaughter over me? Not just on my wedding day, but consistently throughout my life? I feel justified in my feelings, but the way he flipped the script has me second-guessing myself. I've always tried to be understanding and forgiving, but this feels like the last straw. I don't want to completely cut him out of my life, but I also can't keep being hurt by his actions. What should I do? How do I set boundaries without burning bridges? Any advice or similar experiences would be greatly appreciated. Update 1. It's been a couple of weeks since my last post, and I've got an update to share. Last week, I unexpectedly ran into my dad at a family gathering. Despite my initial hesitation, I decided to stay and try to keep things civil. Unfortunately, the situation quickly became uncomfortable. As the event progressed, my dad started making comments that felt like thinly veiled criticisms of my life choices. He kept emphasizing the importance of traditional family values, which seemed like a direct jab at my decisions. Things took a turn for the worse when he casually mentioned how unfortunate it was that I had chosen not to have him walk me down the aisle at my wedding and instead had some random man. The way he phrased it implied that I had deliberately ruined a special family moment, deflecting the blame. Throughout the gathering, my dad, like a classic narcissist, continued to make remarks that minimized my experiences and decisions. He spoke about family values in a way that seemed targeted at me, implying that my choices somehow went against these ideals. Despite my attempts to steer the conversation to neutral topics, he persistently returned to these sensitive subjects. It became very clear that my dad was more interested in promoting his view of how things should be rather than trying to understand my perspective. His comments and attitude just created a tense atmosphere. What angered me more was it was not even our party, and I could see my relatives judging us. Eventually, I felt compelled to leave earlier than planned because I couldn't stand everyone's judgment. Moreover, the constant pressure and subtle jabs from my dad had become too much to bear, and I needed to remove myself from the situation. Now that I've had a chance to reflect, I realize that Dad is not changing his behavior at all. This encounter has only reinforced my belief that my dad is more invested in maintaining his own narrative than in understanding or supporting me. One particular thing that I have noticed about Dad is that he always has his emotional blow-ups in front of a huge group of people so that there could be a scene. He's not interested in having a conversation or solving anything. He just wants to embarrass me. It's becoming increasingly clear that he sees nothing wrong with his actions and is completely unaware of how he's made me feel over the years. I'm starting to understand that I need to focus on my own well-being and happiness, but it's definitely very hard. I'm grateful for the support I've received here on Reddit. Your support means more than you know. It's helping me navigate these complicated situations and figure out my next steps. Till then, I would love some advice from you guys. Update 2. Hey guys, I'm here with another update, and this one's really thrown me for a loop. Recently, I caught up with a cousin who attended Lily's wedding, and what she told me has left me dumbfounded. During our conversation, my friend casually mentioned something about Lily's wedding that caught me completely off guard. Apparently, Lily had been quite open about her choice of wedding date, revealing that she deliberately selected the same date as my wedding. This wasn't just a coincidence or an oversight. It was, in Lily's own words, a power move. According to my friend, Lily openly bragged about this decision at her wedding. She told guests that choosing the same date was her way of asserting her place in the family. She wanted to ensure that everyone would remember her big day, even if it meant overshadowing mine. And apparently, she also had reasons for it. She told everyone that I was always jealous of her and would often have arguments with Dad and her mom about her. As I have already mentioned in my story, yes, I was jealous of her for a while, but I never blamed her or argued with my stepmom about anything. Even at my lowest, I was mature enough to not hate her. The only person I blamed for my trauma was Dad because he was the one choosing to neglect me. And while we have brought up Dad, Lily also said all kinds of stuff about him. She told the people at the party that he wanted to ruin her day because he never really loved her as his daughter. He only took care of her because he wanted her mother's money. He was never there when she needed him and was busy catering to his ex-wife and daughter. What surprised me the most was how could my stepmom listen to all of this when she knew the truth. She was a very kind woman when I was a kid, but at this point, I guess I really know no one. Anyway, my friend overheard Lily discussing this with some of her bridesmaids. They were laughing about my reaction to the date clash, dismissing my concerns as overly dramatic. It seems they found amusement in my stress over the situation. This explains a lot of stuff now. We know why there was so much resistance when I initially raised concerns about the date clash. I think she made the elaborate plan of asking Dad to walk her down the aisle so that he would comply with her schemes. But when she knew that he was not needed, she threw him away like trash. At the time, I was told it was purely coincidental and that changing the date would be too difficult. Now it's clear that this was all part of Lily's calculated plan. I wish that I could pity Dad, but this is just his karma getting to him. I've been trying to piece together other incidents that might make more sense in light of this information. There were several occasions where Lily seemed to go out of her way to one-up me or draw attention to herself during family events. At the time, I brushed these off as just a random incident or misunderstandings. For example, it could not have been a mere coincidence that she was going through a breakdown while I was getting surgery. Whenever there was an important event in my life, somehow Lily also had something going on. Now I'm seeing a pattern that I hadn't fully recognized before. At the same time, I'm also thinking about my relatives' reaction to this. Is everybody present at Lily's wedding seeing me as the villain? I honestly don't know how to proceed. Part of me wants to confront Lily about this, to call her out on her behavior, but another part of me wonders if it's worth the emotional energy given her past responses to my concerns. I'm considering reaching out to other family members to see if they are aware of this situation. However, I'm hesitant to potentially create more family drama or be seen as stirring up trouble. For now, I've decided to take a step back from family gatherings. I've declined the next few invitations, citing work commitments. This has given me some much-needed space to process everything and consider my next steps. I've also started seeing a therapist to help me navigate these complex family dynamics. It's been helpful to have a neutral party to discuss these issues with and to get strategies for setting healthy boundaries. Looking ahead, I'm not sure what my relationship with Lily and the rest of the family will look like. I know I need to prioritize my own mental health, even if that means creating more distance between us. I'm grateful for this Reddit community and the support you've shown me through all of this. Your insights and advice have been invaluable as I navigate this challenging situation. I'll keep you updated as things develop. Thanks for listening and for being a sounding board as I work through all of this. I'm not sure what hurts more. The fact that Lily went out of her way to spite me her whole life, or that my dad was not even once able to uncover her facade. This bombshell has made me reevaluate my entire relationship with both of them. I am so grateful for the support and validation I've received from you all. It's reassuring to know that I'm not overreacting and that my feelings are valid. So a big thanks to all of you. Update 3. Hey everyone. I'm back with what's likely to be my final update for a while. I've taken some big steps to address the situation with my dad and Lily, and I wanted to share them with you all. After everything that's happened, My husband suggested we take a short getaway to clear our heads. During this time, I really reflected on the whole situation and came to some tough decisions. With encouragement from friends and this amazing Reddit community, I decided it was time to set some firm boundaries. Last week, I arranged to meet my dad at his place. I went in with a clear plan and was determined to lay everything out on the table. I told him about how his actions, or often lack thereof, have hurt me deeply over the years. I specifically addressed his recent behavior around the weddings and made it clear that it was unacceptable. As I expected, my dad didn't take it well at first. He tried to flip the script, accusing me of being unreasonable and claiming that I was the one tearing the family apart by holding grudges. But this time, I didn't back down. I stood my ground and told him point blank that if he didn't listen to what I had to say, he was at risk of losing me forever. The conversation was intense and lasted for hours. We rehashed old arguments and brought up years of unresolved issues. This time, I didn't wait to listen to his side anymore because that is what was happening till now, and this was going to be my moment. As for Lily, I've decided to go no contact with her. It's become painfully clear that she doesn't see me as family and has no qualms about hurting me to get what she wants. I explained this to my dad as well, making it clear that I wouldn't be attending any family events where she was present. I did not go into a lot of detail about what I've heard Lily say about my dad because he would have just seen it as me bad-mouthing her. I was a little disappointed in my stepmom because I used to see her as a mother figure, but with everyone switching sides, I am not surprised anymore. This decision hasn't been easy, and I know it might cost me my relationships with other family members. Some might believe Lily's version of events or side with her out of convenience, but I've reached a point where I'm okay with that. If I'm going to lose family over lies and manipulation, then so be it. My mental health and well-being have to come first. Moving forward, I'm focusing on building a positive, supportive environment with my husband and the people who genuinely care about me. I've started reaching out to old friends I've neglected and even joined a local book club to meet new people. I want to express my deepest gratitude to all of you here on Reddit. Your advice, support, and sometimes tough love have been a guiding light during this incredibly difficult time. You've helped me find the strength to stand up for myself and prioritize my own happiness. Thank you all again. I may not be updating as frequently, but know that your support has made a world of difference. Wishing you all the best. Now on to the next story. Story 5. My wife started acting suspicious after her new job. Then I found out she was sleeping with her high school sweetheart, so I exposed her at our anniversary party in front of the entire family. I've been married to my wife, Jennifer, for the past 5 years. We met each other for the first time when we were both working at the same company. What started as a professional acquaintance quickly blossomed into a deep connection, and after 2 years of dating, we decided to tie the knot. Jennifer is, without a doubt, absolutely drop-dead gorgeous. I know that might sound like an exaggeration, but it's the truth. My wife has this natural beauty that turns heads wherever she goes, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard people, both friends and strangers, mention just how stunning she is. It's something that other men have often pointed out to me, almost as if they're in awe that I'm the lucky guy who gets to call her my wife. But to be honest, it's never really bothered me. If anything, I take pride in it. For me, it's not just about her physical appearance. Jennifer is beautiful inside and out. She has this incredible energy, a confidence that radiates from within. She's also incredibly smart, driven, and kind. She's the whole package, and I'm grateful every day that we found each other. One of the things I love most about her is that she's just as passionate about fitness as I am. Going to the gym and maintaining my own fitness has always been important to me, so it's amazing to have a partner who values the same things. We both share a love for staying active and taking care of our bodies, and that's something that has strengthened our bond over the years. Whether we're hitting the gym for a workout, going for a run, or trying out new fitness challenges, it's something that keeps us connected and motivated. It's a part of our relationship that I really cherish. So, while people might see Jennifer's beauty first, I'm lucky enough to know the amazing woman behind it. She has been my partner, my best friend, and someone who has inspired me to be my best self every day since the time we met. This year brought a significant change for Jennifer and me. She was offered a position at another company, one that came with a very high salary and an incredible opportunity for her career growth. When she first told me about the offer, I couldn't have been more proud of her. She's always been hardworking and ambitious, and this job seemed like the perfect next step for her career. Even though it meant we would no longer be working at the same company, I encouraged her to accept the position. I knew it was a chance she couldn't pass up, and I wanted to support her in every way I could. From the moment she started at her new job, Jennifer was filled with excitement. She would come home every evening with stories about her coworkers, her boss, and all the interesting things that happened throughout her day. I loved hearing about her experiences. It was clear that she was thriving in her new environment, and that made me really happy. However, with her new job came some changes to our daily routine. Also, her work hours are different from mine now, which means I usually get home earlier than she does. Hence, I've taken on the responsibility of cooking dinner each night, which I actually enjoy. It's become a way for me to unwind after my day and do something nice for Jennifer. After dinner, she handles washing the dishes, which is a small way for us to share the household chore. During dinners, we sit down, enjoy the meal I've prepared, and talk about our days. Whether she's sharing the latest office gossip or I'm telling her about something funny that happened at work, these conversations are a way for us to stay connected despite our busy schedules. After dinner, we often settle in for the evening by watching a movie or just spending quiet time together. Sometimes we'll pick a movie we've both been wanting to see, and other times we'll just relax and chat, enjoying each other's company. It's these moments, the everyday, ordinary ones, that I cherish the most. They remind me of why I fell in love with Jennifer in the first place and how grateful I am to have her in my life. However, about 2 months into Jennifer's new job, I started noticing some changes in her that caught me off guard. It wasn't just one thing, but a series of small, subtle shifts in her behavior and appearance that, when added up, made me feel like something was different. For as long as I've known Jennifer, she's always had a particular style when it came to her work attire. She's a professional through and through, and she's always dressed the part. Typically, she would wear a well-tailored suit or something similarly appropriate for the office. But suddenly, that changed. She began wearing outfits that seemed a bit more revealing, or to put it another way, less conservative than what I was used to seeing her in. Instead of her usual suits, she started opting for sleeveless tops and other pieces that showed a bit more skin. Now, I'm not exactly an expert when it comes to women's fashion, and I've always believed that Jennifer has every right to dress in a way that makes her feel confident and comfortable. I know that fashion is personal, and I've never felt it was my place to comment on what she chooses to wear, so I didn't say anything about it. I just quietly observed and kept my opinions to myself. Around the same time, I noticed that Jennifer started waking up much earlier than she used to, about 2 hours earlier, in fact, to get ready for the office. It wasn't just the early rise that caught my attention, but what she was doing with that extra time. She began spending a lot more time getting ready for work, meticulously applying makeup and paying particular attention to her appearance. One thing that really stood out to me was her sudden affinity for red lipstick. Now, here's the thing. In all the years we've been together, Jennifer has never been one to wear red lipstick. Even at parties or special events, she would always go for more neutral or subtle shades. In her words, red was just never her color, or at least that's what she used to say. So, seeing her suddenly embrace this bold choice was, well, a bit surprising. I couldn't help but feel curious about what might have prompted this change. But again, I kept my thoughts to myself. I figured maybe she was just experimenting with new styles or trying out a different look for her new job. After all, people change and evolve, and I didn't want to jump to any conclusions. The next thing that really caught my attention was when Jennifer started packing lunch for 2 people instead of just for herself. Now, both Jennifer and I are really into eating healthy, and to make things easier during the week, I've always taken on the task of meal prepping for both of us over the weekend. It's something I enjoy doing, and it ensures we have nutritious meals ready to go without the need to cook during our busy workdays. I've always kept a close count of our meals, making sure we had just the right amount to last us through the week. But then I started noticing that our prepped meals were depleting faster than usual. At first, I didn't think much of it. I just figured maybe we were both eating a bit more or that I miscounted somehow. However, when I found myself needing to cook additional meals midweek, a situation that shouldn't have happened if I had prepped enough food. I realized something was off. One evening, I decided to bring it up with Jennifer. I casually asked her if she was feeling hungrier lately or if perhaps she was taking extra lunches to work. I tried to make it sound as light as possible, not wanting to seem accusatory or overly concerned. After all, it was just food, and I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. To my surprise, Jennifer seemed a bit hesitant at first, but then she admitted that she had been packing lunch for a coworker. She explained that there was someone in her office who didn't like to eat much and often skipped meals. Jennifer, being the kind and considerate person she is, didn't want her coworkers to go hungry, so she started taking an extra meal to share with them. I understood where she was coming from. It's just like Jennifer to want to take care of others, and I admire her for that. She never elaborated anything about this so-called coworker, and I never asked. I simply told her that it was fine, and from the next weekend on, I made sure to prep more meals so that Jennifer could continue taking lunch for her coworker without us running out of food at home. Even though I made these adjustments without fuss, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to it. The changes were too sudden, too out of character for the Jennifer I knew so well. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it, and I certainly didn't want to come across as controlling or judgmental. But deep down, I couldn't help but wonder what was really going on with my wife. Then the biggest red flag came up. One night, Jennifer and I were sitting down for dinner, talking about our day as usual. I started telling her about something that had happened at work. One of my coworkers had just discovered that his wife had been cheating on him. The news had devastated him, and as his friend, I couldn't help but feel terrible for him. I shared with Jennifer how sad and heartbroken he was, and how all of us at work felt bad for him. We were all shocked that his wife had destroyed their family for what seemed like her own selfish reasons. I thought it was just another conversation, but something I said must have struck a nerve with Jennifer. Instead of sharing my sympathy for the guy, she suddenly became defensive, arguing that maybe it was the husband's fault. She suggested that perhaps the wife had been unhappy for a long time and that's why she cheated. This completely threw me off. It wasn't the reaction I was expecting from Jennifer at all. Trying to make sense of her response, I calmly pointed out that if the wife was that unhappy, she could have chosen to leave the marriage rather than stay with her husband and betray him like that. To me, it seemed clear that cheating was a cowardly and selfish way to handle things. But Jennifer didn't see it that way. She argued back, saying that sometimes people don't have the courage to leave because they're still unsure. I couldn't help but scoff when I heard that. I told her that, in my opinion, people who cheat are just cowards who don't deserve loyal partners. I was simply expressing my opinion, and we weren't even arguing, but she seemed deeply offended. Jennifer's voice rose as she told me that not everyone can be brave, and that sometimes people make mistakes because they're scared about their decisions. Then, before I could even fully process what was happening, she stormed off, leaving me sitting there, dumbfounded and confused. I was left staring at my half-finished dinner, trying to make sense of what had just happened. I had no idea why Jennifer was so bothered by this conversation, but it made me question what was really going on with her. I couldn't help but wonder if there was something she wasn't telling me, something that might explain the changes I've been noticing over the past few months. This wasn't the Jennifer I knew, and it made me feel like there was a distance growing between us, a gap that I didn't know how to bridge. Then things became worse between us. After that night, it was like a switch had been flipped, and the connection we once had began to fade. Jennifer, who had always been so present and engaged in our life together, started to drift away. She began spending less and less time with me, and her behavior became increasingly distant. She would come home unusually late, well past the time I'd expect her back from work. I'd sit there waiting for her, hoping we could still have dinner together as we always did. But when she finally walked through the door, she wasn't interested in talking much with me, and when she did, it was clear her mind was somewhere else. Our conversations became forced and awkward. I also noticed that Jennifer was spending a lot more time on her phone or disappearing into the washroom for long stretches. It wasn't like her to be so secretive, and it only added to the growing sense of unease I was feeling. I'm a simple, straightforward guy. I've never been the type to play detective or dwell on suspicions. But as the days went on, it became harder and harder to ignore the signs that something was wrong. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to know what was going on, so I confronted Jennifer directly. I asked her if she was cheating on me. I tried to be calm and rational about it. I didn't want to beat around the bush or let my suspicions fester in silence. When I asked her, Jennifer's reaction was immediate and defensive. She argued that I had no right to accuse her of something so vile, and she seemed genuinely hurt by my question. She told me that she wasn't having an affair, but that she was just going through a lot at work and dealing with work-related stress. She insisted that this was just a phase she was going through since she was still taking time to adjust in her new company and that she would be fine once things settled down. Despite her explanation, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Her defensiveness only made me more suspicious, but I didn't want to push her too hard. I decided to keep my mouth shut for the time being, even though my instincts were telling me that something wasn't right. The next day, Jennifer herself approached me and apologized for how things had been between us. She acknowledged that she had been neglecting me and our relationship, and she promised that she would do better. Her apology seemed sincere, and for a moment, I wanted to believe that maybe she was telling the truth, that it really was just a rough patch at work and nothing more. Then one evening, everything changed when I received an unexpected call from a close friend. He asked me if I knew where Jennifer was, and his question caught me off guard. My friend isn't the type to meddle in other people's business, so the fact that he was reaching out like this immediately raised red flags. It was late during a workday, and I had assumed Jennifer was still at the office finishing up some last-minute tasks, or maybe working late as she sometimes did. But then my friend told me something that made my heart sink. He told me how he had seen Jennifer at a restaurant having dinner with another man. According to my friend, they seemed unusually close, and it wasn't just a casual dinner between colleagues. He mentioned that Jennifer was laughing, leaning in close, and even stroking the man's hand in a way that didn't seem appropriate for someone who was just a coworker. He told me that under normal circumstances he wouldn't have thought to call me, but given how intimate they appeared, he felt compelled to let me know. I thanked him for telling me, even though I could barely process what he was saying. After we hung up, I felt a wave of unease wash over me. My friend then sent me a subtle picture he had managed to take of Jennifer with the guy at the restaurant. When I looked at the photo, my heart sank further. Jennifer was smiling, and she was clearly comfortable with this man. There was something familiar about him that I couldn't quite place. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd seen this guy before, but I couldn't pinpoint where or when. That night, when Jennifer finally came home, I decided to play it cool. I asked her if she wanted to have dinner with me like we usually did. Without much thought, she shook her head and casually mentioned that she had already eaten at a team dinner with her coworkers. I kept my tone light and nonchalant, asking how many people were at this dinner just to see what she would say. She didn't hesitate before responding, telling me that almost all of her coworkers were there. It was at that moment that I realized that my wife was lying to me. She clearly had something to hide. Otherwise, she would have had no issues telling me about having dinner with the mysterious man. I kept my mouth shut and pretended everything was fine, but inside I was determined to get to the bottom of this. The Jennifer I knew wouldn't have lied to me so easily, and I needed to know who that man was, what he meant to her, and why she was keeping this part of her life hidden from me. That night, after Jennifer went to bed early, claiming she was tired from drinking too much at her team dinner, as I watched her sleep, the weight of everything that had happened in the past few weeks pressed down on me, and I knew I had to find out the truth. Quietly, I waited until she was deep in sleep before carefully taking her phone from the nightstand. I noticed right away that she had changed her password, which was unusual since we both were always pretty open about our devices and had no secrets. I knew I had to get into her phone somehow. Now, Jennifer is a very forgetful person, so I was certain that she would have chosen something simple as her password, something she could easily remember. My heart was pounding as I tried to recall the usual combinations she might use. Birthdays, anniversaries, or even her parents' birthdays. I went through the list in my head, trying each one with trembling hands, praying that I could crack the password before the phone got disabled. Luckily, my fourth attempt worked, and the screen unlocked. I knew I was crossing a line, but I felt like I had no choice. I needed to know what was going on, even if it meant invading her privacy. With my heart racing, I scrolled through her messages, dreading what I might find. I noticed she had been sending multiple messages to someone named Mark. They talked regularly and even exchanged selfies. I read through the messages and realized that he also worked at her company. Then I clicked on Mark's contact information to check his profile picture. But as soon as I did, everything finally clicked. This was Mark, the very same guy Jennifer had dated back in high school. They had been high school sweethearts, inseparable until he had to go abroad because of his family's decision. I remember Jennifer telling me about him when we first started dating. She shared how they had tried to make the long-distance relationship work, but eventually they had to give up because the distance was too much to handle. It was a story from her past, one that I had thought was long behind us. But here he was, back in her life, and it was clear from the messages that their connection had rekindled. My hands shook as I read through their conversation, each word feeling like a dagger to my heart. They weren't just catching up like old friends. They were talking in a way that made it clear there was something more between them. The way they addressed each other, the way they reminisced about old times, and the way they talked about their feelings. It was all too much to bear. My wife sent him a morning selfie every day after she would get ready for work, and he would reply back saying how beautiful she looked. They had also sent some inappropriate messages to each other, which made me almost puke. The worst part was that there were a few pictures of them in a hotel bed, just kissing and gazing into each other's eyes. It was like a nightmare coming to life. The woman I loved, the woman I had built my life with, was cheating on me. I felt a wave of betrayal, anger, and sadness wash over me as I realized that everything had changed. Jennifer hadn't just been hiding this from me. She had been lying to me to my face while she rekindled something with a man from her past. I took screenshots of all her chats with him and sent them to my phone. I then wiped off the evidence from her end so she would never find out that I now had evidence of her cheating. I carefully placed her phone back on the nightstand, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. I wanted to burst out crying, but despite everything I had uncovered, there was still a very small part of me that hoped that maybe, just maybe, Jennifer still cared about me and wasn't really going to leave me for this guy. I didn't want to believe that our years together could be so easily discarded. I wanted to fight for our relationship, for us. So, for the next few days I kept to myself, trying to come to terms with the facts about her affair. As much as I wanted to give up, I still loved Jennifer and wanted to see things through. During this time, I was quiet and distant, and I could tell that Jennifer noticed something was off, but she never asked me anything about it. She just didn't seem concerned about me any longer. Then, about a week later, Jennifer told me that she had a work trip coming up. I pointed out how this work trip coincidentally fell during our anniversary, hoping to get some kind of reaction from her, something that would show she still cared about us. In my head, I had been planning to host a small party with our family and friends, something to remind us of the bond we shared, to remind her of the life we had built together. I had been with her through so much, standing by her side through thick and thin, and I couldn't understand how she could so easily push me aside for the other guy. Jennifer claimed she had no idea that our anniversary was coming up, which hurt more than I could put into words. How could she forget something so important to us? She offered a half-hearted apology, saying she was sorry to miss it, but then, seeing my disappointment, she immediately backtracked, saying that she would talk to her boss and try to come back home one day before our anniversary so we could celebrate it together. I told her about my plan to invite some of our family members and friends, and she immediately agreed, telling me that it was a great idea. Hearing her reaction, I felt hopeful, so I went ahead and invited people as planned. Throughout Jennifer's so-called work trip, every time I called or messaged her, she would ignore me. It wasn't like her to be so distant, and as each day passed, my worry grew. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. In a desperate attempt to understand what was going on, I decided to turn to social media. I didn't have much to go on, but I knew Mark's full name and figured he might have an Instagram profile. I didn't know if he was on this work trip with Jennifer or not, but I needed to know more. After some searching, I found his profile and started to stalk it, my heart pounding with every click. Imagine my shock, my devastation, when I saw Jennifer in his Instagram stories. He had posted several clips and photos from the trip, and while there were a few other coworkers in some of the shots, the ones that stood out, the ones that made my blood run cold, were the ones of him and Jennifer. They were together in most of them, smiling, laughing, kissing each other on the cheek, looking far too comfortable, far too close. They looked like a couple. My heart shattered as I scrolled through each story. My worst fears were confirmed. I realized at that moment that I had truly lost my wife. I didn't want to see any more of their pictures together, and I didn't want Mark to see that I had viewed his stories. The last thing I needed was for him to tell Jennifer that I had been stalking his profile, so I blocked him, hoping that I could delete those pictures from my head as well. Throughout the night, I cried myself to sleep. Currently, as I sit here and write this, I feel utterly betrayed and defeated. Our anniversary is tomorrow, and my wife is supposed to come home today. I don't know how I can face her and celebrate with her after she has been shamelessly out having an affair with another man. Will I be an a-hole if I cancel our anniversary party tomorrow, as I feel like there's nothing left to celebrate? Update 1. Wow, in just a matter of a few hours, I have received hundreds of DMs from people on Reddit. I would like to thank each and every one of you for checking up on me and assuring me that I can go ahead and cancel the anniversary party if I want to. I did send out a group text earlier saying that the party is canceled. However, people have been calling me and asking if something is wrong. I don't have the heart to tell anyone anything until I have confronted Jennifer. Today, when my wife returned from her work trip, she was really upset with me for canceling the party without discussing it with her first. She believes some of our family members now think something is up. I've tried to bring up the work trip to get her to talk about Mark, but she is stonewalling me and keeps saying that we can talk about her trip after the party. She has been insisting to me that we go ahead with the party as originally planned. Update 2. It's been a week since I last updated. I listened to some of your advice and decided to be petty just like my wife and to teach her a lesson. I agreed to host the party as planned and asked her to reinvite everyone. Throughout the event, I watched her mingle with our family and friends, playing the role of the perfect wife in front of everyone. When it was my turn to give a speech to thank everyone for coming to our anniversary party, I decided to use this opportunity to reveal the truth. I'm not one for theatrics, so I spoke plainly. I told everyone that this was going to be our last anniversary party, since I had discovered my wife had been having an affair with Mark, her high school sweetheart, for months. Jennifer froze when she heard my words, looking like a deer caught in headlights. I told the guests that I had seen all her messages, inappropriate pictures they had sent to each other, and photos of them together in a hotel room. I explained that even after discovering all this, I still wanted to give her a chance, but after her behavior during her work trip, where she spent all her time with Mark, I was pretty much done with her. Everyone was shocked by what I had revealed. My mother, visibly upset, began yelling at Jennifer, demanding to know if it was true. Even Jennifer's own parents, who had always liked me, pressed her to speak up. In the end, my wife broke down in front of everyone. She admitted to everything and begged for my forgiveness, saying that she had foolishly gone with the flow and didn't know how to stop things with Mark as she just felt so comfortable around him. She admitted that she met him a few months ago when he joined her team at her new workplace after returning from abroad, and that they had been sleeping together for months behind my back. She then went on to claim that she couldn't tell me the truth since I was the only love of her life and she didn't want to lose me. I just shook my head in disappointment as I then announced to everyone that I would be divorcing Jennifer since I could no longer live my life with someone who was this shameless. There was not even one single word of protest as everyone agreed with me. Ever since then, I have kicked Jennifer out of my place. She is furious with me for exposing her in front of everyone and for turning our anniversary party into her farewell party. She has continued to reach out to me several times in hopes that I would give our marriage another try, but I have chosen to completely ignore her. Update 3. I have finally found a great lawyer who is going to make sure that I won't have to pay a dime to Jennifer during our divorce. He's confident that given the evidence of her cheating and the fact that we don't have kids, the divorce will be pretty straightforward. For those asking about my mental health, I guess I am still processing everything, but I do feel at peace with my decision to leave my wife. Thanks to the support of my family, I'm no longer feeling scared of my decision. I think I'm going to be okay. Now on to the next story. Story 6. My husband's affair with his brother's ex led to him leaving, marrying her, and abandoning our kids. I filed for custody and child support. I'm 37, and have been with my husband, 44M, for 17 years. We have kids, a dog, and we used to own a business together. He has this friend who happens to be his little brother's ex-girlfriend, 30F. She's been in and out of our lives since she broke up with my Bill over 12 years ago. Over the last 4 years or so, she's been constantly messaging my husband. She never sends me a message unless my husband tells her that he's not home and she's on her way. Happened only once in 4 years. She's engaged and has a baby on the way. Both my husband and his friends say they have a brother-sister relationship. My kids don't like her or her kid. Her kid is 7 years younger than our youngest child. They feel like they have to babysit her when she comes over. This is what bothers me about their relationship. I'm never included in their conversations online, even when she invites herself over. My husband once told his brother that he thought that she was hot, and if he was younger and single, he would try to date her. My Bill sent me a message to warn me about their relationship. When I spoke to my husband about it, he laughed it off and told me his brother was jealous. During an intimate moment, my husband told me that she was the only person he would ever ask to do a threesome with us. That was never discussed between us before, not even the option of a threesome. When she comes over, she barely speaks directly to me, always to my husband. I have to butt into the conversation for her to even acknowledge me. I'm tired of feeling like the third wheel in their friendship. Last year, he gave me one of his old cell phones because mine had broken. He hadn't logged out of his Messenger account, so I used it to my advantage and read their messages at the time. He had admitted to her that he had told his brother that she was hot, and that if he was younger and single, he would date her. He then told her I wasn't home when he said that, and I didn't know exactly what he said. Her response was to send him the laughing emoji. Ever since, I feel like they both occasionally disrespect me in their conversations. All he does is talk about her. Often, he never makes her wait when she texts him. Yet sometimes when I text him, he takes a half hour to answer me. So tell me, would I be an a-hole if I told him that he had to choose between his relationship with me and his friend? Update 1, 2 months later. We've had several talks over the last few weeks. First, he wanted to work things out. As a matter of fact, he says he never meant any of it, and he keeps apologizing for breaking my trust. Now he's being a plain dick. Then he flipped and decided that since I don't want to work on things, he left for his brother's house. He hasn't seen our kids in the past month. He talks to them on the phone, but that's about it. So far, to piss me off, he's cut mine and the kids' cell phone service, so I had to get us new SIM cards for that, because otherwise we wouldn't have phones. He's refused to pay anything in regards to school supplies and uniforms. He doesn't want to give me a dime. He hasn't done his taxes this year, which means I won't get any family allowance, CCTB, which cuts me $1,800 a month on my budget. I was able to sign the kids up for a local school supply distribution. The only thing they don't help with is the uniforms. Thankfully, only my older two need uniforms. My oldest has some old uniform shirts that will be passed down to my other child, which means my daughter will be wearing her older brother's shirts. She's really annoyed by the situation and has been giving me lots of attitude about it, but at the moment, I can't afford t-shirts at $35 a piece with the school's logo on it, so she has no choice. Unfortunately, uniforms are mandatory. I spoke to his friend as well. I told her everything that was going on. He told her he left me because I cheated on him, which isn't true, and she blames herself for what happened. Personally, I just think she was putting on a show. I haven't spoken to her since. If you ask me, I still think she is a hypocrite. Finances are tough. I barely make ends meet. Thankfully, food banks exist because once rent is paid, I barely have anything left over for bills and groceries. I still haven't been able to get the money for a lawyer yet. I've tried taking loans, but that didn't go over well. I've tried the borrow sub and that hasn't worked either. Now it's like we're in a state of Cold War. He refuses to talk to me for the time being. I guess he'll come around eventually. For the kids' sake, I hope. I feel like sometimes I'm drowning in all this mess. Edit. Lots of comments have come up on this post. I didn't expect as many comments. I've read as many as I can, and I'll address a few points. He's gone to stay with his other brother, the second one in the family. My STBX is the oldest of 3. It's the youngest of his brothers who told me what's up. I filed my taxes back in March. He was supposed to file his a few weeks later. At the time, everything was good between us, and I listed him as my spouse because that's what we've been doing for the past 17 years since we got married. I have to file my next taxes as single. The school uniforms. My oldest kids are in high school, a public high school. Uniforms are mandatory across the school board. I've contacted the school, and unfortunately, they don't have any low-cost uniforms. They suggested I take a look at local thrift shops. They do have an emergency budget for uniforms, but only if you have recently arrived in the country. I've contacted several lawyers. I know what my rights are. I know how much it's going to cost me to take him to court. He's quit his job, so suing him for alimony or whatever is going to be tough. I don't qualify for legal aid based on previous taxes. It takes at least 90 days of him being out of the family home for me to do anything against him. He's been gone for less than 2 weeks. As for my family, I have had no contact with my parents since 2010. They do not know my younger children, nor do they care. I won't be getting into the reasons why here. His family has always been in low contact with us. His parents have never liked me, and his brother who he is staying with doesn't like me either. Edit 2. For those who are saying that the timeline doesn't add up, I left with my 4 kids at the beginning of July to visit my elderly grandmother, who doesn't live in the same province as us. It was supposed to give us breathing time to try and work things out. When I came back with the kids, he was already gone. When I was at my grandmother's, he would barely talk to me but talk to our kids via Messenger. My trip with the kids to my grandmother's is a yearly trip. I didn't know that he would go from wanting to stay and work things out to leaving. I was blindsided by that. I do have a PayPal account. I'm not going to start making posts on FB blasting him. I'm not setting up a GoFundMe either. I don't want him finding anything out. I don't want to get charged with trying to ruin his reputation either. I don't want him to have anything to use against me in court. Comments. Comment 1. Go file for child support at your local courthouse. You can utilize self-help to assist with filling out forms. Also, get some alimony just to be an a-hole. Comment 2. I would file for divorce and ask for immediate financial support and full custody of the kids, as he has had no physical contact with them. Stop playing with your kids' stability and mental health. Move forward and be their parent. Soon-to-be ex can go play with his friends. Update 2. 7 months later. It's been a long while since I've updated everyone about what's going on. It's been almost 8 long months since he left. Everyone was right when they said he would end up with her. They got married in a civil ceremony on Christmas Day. The only time he asked me for the kids was for 2 weeks during Christmas break. He wanted them there for his wedding. Apparently, he barely talks to the kids now. The kids text him several times a week to let him know what's up with school and their activities. He barely answers them. When he does, he complains about how I won't let him take them overnight. He still posts pictures of his new family daily on social media. They are still taking weekend trips and all that. I hate how he's flaunting everything for our older kids to see. Our oldest is going to college in the fall, and he's worried about covering his school fees. When he tried talking to his dad about it, his dad told him that now he's almost an adult, so it's not his problem anymore. I did take him to court. I found myself a good lawyer who took on my case for free. We had our first court date last week. It went well. I got full custody of the kids. We have another court date to determine child support. He's still not working legally, so the judge is having a hard time setting an amount for child support. So far, all the documents he brought to court show that he is on welfare and that his new wife pays their rent, bills, and vacations. I don't buy any of that. Neither does the court. He's ordered by the court to provide documentation that he's done his taxes this year, and he has to try and place himself within the job market in a reasonable amount of time in order to provide for the children he does have. Our next court date is in April. Hopefully, he's going to get his sorted out. As for me, I'm still working 2 jobs to make ends meet. I'll be moving next month with the kids into an apartment in a co-op building. My rent will be much lower than what I am paying now. I'm stressing out about my finances. Moving is expensive. I have to hire a company to help me move all our stuff. Plus, with my son starting college soon, summer break, and all that, I'm stressed out all day, every day. All I see are expenses coming up. I'm still exhausted all the time. I work more than I am at home with my kids. I hope that within the next year, things get better for us. I've started my own small business online. Hopefully that picks up too. I haven't started dating either. I'm not interested in meeting anyone yet. For those of you who wrote to me saying I blew up my life and family and called me the a-hole in this situation, I don't think I was the a-hole. I deserve better. If I am to ever update this again, it will be on my own page. Comments. Comment 1. I'm proud of you, OP. I know it's tough now, but you will come through on the other side stronger than you were before. Comment 2. His wife will end up paying his child support, most likely depending on the state. We are in Canada. They aren't legally married yet. They only did a civil ceremony and didn't have a marriage license. My ex admitted this in court. Their marriage has no legal value for the moment. Knowing how he is, they won't ever get a marriage license. Comment 3. I'm sure in Canada, legally married or not, they may be considered common law partners, depending on how long they've been together. If that's the case, ask your lawyer if they can review their earnings as a household, since she's apparently paying for everything. OP. They have only been together since August or September, if my memory serves me right. Now on to the next story. Story 7. My dad and his new wife tried to take over my inherited home after their wedding, so I changed the locks and took back control. When my 70-year-old mother died of an unexpected stroke last year, I inherited the house I grew up in. Although losing Mom was painful, her meticulous planning helped me stay stable during this trying period. I have spent almost 20 years developing my business in financial consulting. When I was 7, my parents were divorced. Even though they shared custody, my mother and I were always closer. I never felt like a priority to my 73-year-old father, who was either preoccupied with business or dating. Since Mom had sacrificed her promising real estate career to raise me and support Dad's professional development in corporate finance, she acquired ownership of the property in lieu of alimony after the divorce. It has always been more than just a place to live. In this large, colonial-style home in the Massachusetts suburbs, there are memories of Mom everywhere, from the yard where we spent many weekends planting her favorite roses to the kitchen where she taught me how to make her renowned apple pie. Since my parents purchased it in the late 1970s, the house itself, a clean, 4-bedroom building with a wraparound porch, has served as our family's residence. As a child, I saw my mother make this house a cozy and inviting place. She maintained an amazing home for me while re-entering the real estate market, even after the divorce. As Dad's corporate career took off, his visits became more and more infrequent. Although Dad would attend important occasions like birthdays and graduations, our bond never grew to the degree I observed in my classmates' bonds with their fathers. The terms of the divorce settlement had been simple. Dad no longer had to pay alimony, and Mom received the house. She had taken care of everything at home as he ascended the corporate ladder, supporting him during his early career. Instead of looking for continued support after their divorce, she insisted on keeping the house. She would often declare, "A home is more valuable than monthly checks," and her choice turned out to be sensible. She made sure I had a secure home life while she reconstructed her real estate career. My father invited his 61-year-old lover, Elizabeth, to our Christmas celebration 2 years ago. She arrived with her 2 kids from a prior relationship with her high school lover, Sarah, 41, and Rachel, 39. Similar to how their mother initially came across, the daughters were quiet and reticent. Elizabeth complimented Mom's decorating style and asked insightful questions about our family's customs, demonstrating her sincere enthusiasm and getting to know us. Over the next few months, we gradually but favorably grew closer to Elizabeth and her daughters. Elizabeth was considerate of our preferences by calling ahead to ask if she might bring something unique to our sporadic family gatherings. Despite their lack of warmth, her daughters were always courteous and appeared to value being a part of our family get-togethers. Despite Elizabeth's presence in our life, Mom remained incredibly kind. She would reply, "Everyone deserves a chance at happiness." But occasionally I could see a glimmer of grief in her eyes as Dad and Elizabeth would depart together. In retrospect, I saw how strong she must have been to greet them with such warmth. The loss was abrupt and terrible. When Mom died last spring, she suffered a stroke while sleeping. The doctors claimed it was a peaceful but far too early death. She was planning to renovate the garden that weekend, and we had just talked about it over dinner the previous evening. Although I was devastated by the suddenness of her death, she had planned for everything because she was a realistic person. We learned that Mom had revised her estate plans about the time I turned 18. During the will reading, I was left the house and most of her possessions. A note detailing her choices, specifically regarding the house, was also left behind. This home has been your anchor through every storm. Keep it as your safe harbor, but never let it keep you from sailing towards your dreams. When the funeral arrangements were being made, Dad and Elizabeth provided the proper support. Mom's large photo albums for the memorial exhibit were organized by her children, and Elizabeth helped arrange the wake's refreshments. But after the will reading, I saw a change in Dad's attitude. He made multiple remarks about how he and Mom had selected the property together and how he had managed all the significant renovations over the years, and his congratulations on my inheritance felt forced. The weeks that followed the funeral were filled with paperwork and last-minute changes. Mom had set aside things especially for Dad, including his wedding jewelry and the presents he had given her throughout the years. I assumed he would find meaning in this gesture, but he appeared more preoccupied with the house. Because of his early foresight in selecting this site, he casually commented on how the area had improved and the property worth had gone up. I stayed in the house and took solace in following Mom's rituals. Even though I was never as good with roses as she was, her garden became my weekend project. In an attempt to create a new normal for myself, I turned one of the spare bedrooms into a home office because my job as a financial advisor permitted me to work from home to some extent. Dad called to tell Elizabeth that he was engaged about 6 months ago. In order to save money on hotel expenses, he proposed that they spend the weeks before the wedding at my place. The house was spacious, and Elizabeth's daughters were working from home. He made it look like a win-win situation by offering to divide the household expenditures and utilities. A month ago, the arrangement began, and at first it seemed like a good thing. Conversations over coffee in the morning and family dinners in the evening filled the house. Elizabeth demonstrated her culinary prowess by frequently cooking for everyone. Even though they were still reticent, her girls appeared to be coming around to the notion of our blended family. The house started to feel less empty than it had after Mom's death. Then, 3 days prior to the wedding, Dad requested a private meeting in Mom's favorite place, her garden. He disclosed that he wanted them to live in permanently and that their return was not just for the wedding. By claiming that he was concerned about my living alone in such a big house, he pretended to be concerned for my welfare. He stated, "Your mother would have wanted you to have a family around you," but I began to question whether Mom would have concurred. The request evoked complex emotions. There was a part of me that missed the family dynamic I had been living with for the last month. The presence of people made the place feel cozier, and Elizabeth had been incredibly gracious. However, there was something strange about Dad's strategy. I kept thinking about his past responses to the inheritance and his trite remarks regarding the property's worth. I told him I wanted time to consider my options and would make a decision after the wedding, rather than responding right away. It was telling how he responded to this simple request. Before he could conceal it with comprehension, a glimmer of irritation appeared on his face. It brought back memories of my early years when his intentions and my needs had clashed. Now that the wedding is only a few days away, I'm at a turning point. Following the ceremony, they are expected to remain here for a few more days before returning to Houston. I'm starting to think that I should grant their request to make this arrangement permanent. We have demonstrated over the past month that we can live in harmony with one another, and having other people around makes the house feel less empty. But I can't get rid of the persistent sense that something is off. Warning signs include Dad's obsession with the house's worth, his subtly expressed irritation at my hesitation, and his attempts to remind me of his role in its acquisition. Elizabeth has been flawless, almost too flawless, and I question whether their motivations go beyond simple familial ties. A part of me regrets questioning their motives. This is what healed families do, after all. Join forces, help one another, and use the fragments of what was destroyed to create something new. However, there's another part of me that cautions me. Maybe the one that acquired Mom's pragmatic temperament. Even though I've dedicated my professional life to assisting people in making wise financial decisions, this circumstance has me doubting my judgment. My normally clear thinking seems to be obscured by the emotional complexities of family relationships. I would definitely benefit from an independent opinion on whether my suspicions are justified or if my gut is attempting to keep me from making a grave error. Does sharing your inherited house with family cause you to feel this conflicted? Should I believe my intuition that something is off? Or am I allowing disappointments from the past to cloud my assessment of the current circumstance? Update 1. After my last post, things swiftly got out of hand. The wedding took place at the Grand Hotel downtown this past weekend. Despite my misgivings, I assisted with the preparations and even made a courteous toast. Everything appeared to be picture-perfect, and Elizabeth's daughters were bridesmaids. Around 8 a.m. on the morning following the wedding, I woke up to a strangely silent home. After the festivities, I initially believed that everyone was sleeping in. However, I discovered a hurriedly written letter on the kitchen counter. Gone for our honeymoon. Return in a week. They had not informed me of their departure. Nothing had been discussed regarding their leaving time or their plans during the wedding preparations. They were gone, yet their personal effects were still strewn throughout the guest rooms. Both Elizabeth and my father's phone calls ended up in voicemail. Elizabeth finally picked up her phone around midday. Her customary charming manner was entirely absent from her tone. "Did we forget to let you know? I apologize for that," she added, clearly not being sincere. She yelled, "You're not a child anymore," when I voiced my worries about not being told. "We needed some privacy because your father now has a new family." From there, the discussion just grew more heated. They were going to remodel their rooms when they returned, and she had the gall to tell me to get over myself and tidy up the house before they did. At that moment, something inside of me exploded. For the following few hours, I took pictures and films of everything, including their possessions, the condition of the house, and the message they left. I then had all the locks changed after contacting a locksmith. After recording everything, I packed up their possessions and put them in waterproof containers on the covered porch. I sent a message to Elizabeth and my father. "Your belongings are packed and on the porch. You have until Sunday to collect them. Anything left after that will be donated to charity. Do not attempt to enter the house. The locks have been changed, and I will contact the police if necessary." The reactions were explosive and happened instantly. Messages from both of them began flooding my phone, alternating between guilt-tripping and asking, "How could you do this to your family?" Elizabeth's kids also joined in, writing letters blaming me for destroying the family and threatening to make you regret your choice. My father's voicemail, which said, "Your mother would be ashamed of your behavior," was what really got to me. He conveniently forgot that he had been coveting the house since Mom's death. "We were trying to help you, and this is how you repay our kindness?" I have blocked their numbers for the time being, but I have saved all of their voicemails and texts. I also told my neighbors about the incident and put in security cameras. Some of them offered to watch the house while I'm at work since they remembered how Dad handled Mom during the divorce. They still haven't gathered their possessions after 3 days. Everything is going well on the porch because of the nice weather, but I'm growing more and more annoyed with their games. I spoke with a lawyer who affirmed that I had the right to have their possessions taken away because I had given them adequate notice. Their social media participation has been the most illuminating aspect of this experience. Ignoring my comments about gathering their belongings, they have been sharing many honeymoon pictures with remarks about new beginnings and family unity. Elizabeth even had the audacity to post about toxic people who can't handle others' happiness. Their perfect family act was simply that, a show. I see now their actual nature is demonstrated by the way they went from being kind and considerate to being conceited and combative when things didn't go their way. I'm glad I followed my gut and refused to accept their long-term living arrangement before getting to know them further. Even though I now realize it wasn't real, I still missed the sense of family we had when they were here. True colors show not in good times, but in how people handle disappointment, Mom used to say. The way they responded when I said no told me all I needed to know about them. Has anyone handled comparable family circumstances? How did you respond to the fallout? Although I'm not changing my mind, I would like some guidance on how to handle the flying monkeys they are sending my way. Update 2. 2 weeks have passed since my last post, and the actual narrative has now surfaced. Their desperate attempts to move in are explained by what I found, and it's worse than I thought. My father's old coworker, who has been a family friend for 30 years, contacted me yesterday. She disclosed that my father had been dismissed 3 months prior for mishandling company cash. So he wasn't taking a break from work, as he had said. It seems that he had been making dangerous financial choices without the required approval, which resulted in large losses. The reality of their financial circumstances is startling. He used all of his retirement funds to cover the $45,000 cost of the wedding at the Grand Hotel. They spent an additional $30,000 on their 2-week Maldivian honeymoon, which was paid for by selling his investment holdings. When they became engaged last year, Elizabeth resigned her work as a real estate agent, confident in my father's 6-figure salary and their intended relocation into what their acquaintances called their future family home. Yes, that's how they described my house. They had planned their entire budget with the presumption that I would allow them to live with me permanently. They had already begun selling some of their furnishings and given notice of their move to Houston. They actually have nowhere else to put their possessions, which is why they are still on my porch. According to mutual acquaintances, they had been spreading the myth that I was staying in their home temporarily because of my mother's misguided sympathy. They presented themselves as kind by letting me stay while I got back on my feet. The truth is, of course, that I'm a successful financial consultant who makes 6 figures of my own money, and the house is legally mine. More unsettling revelations were revealed by my father's former coworker. Bad investments weren't the only reason he was fired at work. He had been acting more and more erratically, making lofty claims to clients and getting indignant when asked about his tactics. Although no one is certain, some believe he was attempting to recuperate from losses on his personal investments. Elizabeth's actions suddenly make perfect sense. Her performance of being the perfect homemaker was a deliberate one. She had been telling her friends that she could concentrate on making a proper family environment rather than working if she lived in my home. She had gone so far as to show her friends Pinterest boards of the alterations she intended to make to my mother's garden. Social media pictures from their honeymoon now paint a different picture. My father's exhausted retirement fund provided the funds for each magical moment they spent together, literally. Their posts about new beginnings were a bet to take over my house. They tried a different strategy after discovering their possessions were still on the porch after their honeymoon. Elizabeth apologized tearfully over the phone, saying that the stress of the wedding had taken over her. By implying that we might support one another during trying times, my father tried to present a picture of family unity. In the process, they unintentionally disclosed more of their scheme. They expected me to eventually give them ownership of the house, not just to move in temporarily. They specifically stated that we should combine our family resources for everyone's benefit, which presumably meant that I would give them my inheritance. Since then, I found out that when they bought the house, they had already spoken with a real estate agent about financing alternatives and the house's possible value. My lawyer has urged me to submit a formal cease and desist letter over their misrepresentation of the house's ownership. They had even contacted a contractor about possible renovations, posing as the owners who were generously letting their daughter stay for now. In case legal action is required, we are also recording all of their communications and posts on social media. Stories of Elizabeth surveying the garden and talking about her remodeling ideas while I was at work have been shared by a number of neighbors. One neighbor even claimed that, without my knowledge, she had asked prospective contractors to come look at the property. Their complete financial desperation is now evident. The entire amount of my father's severance pay was used to plan the wedding. The cost of the wedding and honeymoon entirely drained his retirement funds. After giving notice on their apartment, they no longer have a place to live in Houston, and Elizabeth's sudden resignation has strained relations with her previous work. A few months' worth of living expenditures would not be covered by their present liquid assets. As they consider their options, they are now lodging at a low-cost hotel. Elizabeth has stopped posting on social media, with the exception of ambiguous statements like hidden blessings and family betrayal. My father has shifted from my irrational demands to frantic entreaties. But I'm refusing to back down. Some relatives say that since he is still my father, I ought to assist them in getting out of this situation. But as a financial advisor, I am aware that encouraging bad financial choices just makes matters worse. Furthermore, their attempt to use coercion to get me to leave my house revealed their actual motivations. Although I hope that legal action won't be required, I'm working closely with my lawyer to document everything. Next week, I will begin therapy to deal with the improved security system in the house. I recognize the irony. I, the daughter he never had time for, have created a secure existence via careful preparation, whereas my father, who worked in finance for a living, has ruined his retirement by bad financial choices. Even though she would be disappointed to see him go this far, Mom would appreciate the poetic justice. Has anyone else found relatives who have committed similar financial frauds? How did you manage to keep your distance while dealing with the betrayal? The rage is no longer the difficult thing. It's the melancholy of understanding that my father hasn't really changed. He has lured others into his plans, but he is still the same man who always prioritizes his own demands. I appreciate all of the help that this community has given me. I was able to stand by my judgments and follow my gut thanks to your advice. I'm concentrating on safeguarding my house and myself while I try to come to terms with this treachery. I'll provide another report when there are noteworthy developments. Update 3. This scenario has finally come to an end after weeks of drama, and it's almost poetic. My father and Elizabeth left town today, but not because they wanted to, but because Elizabeth's ex-boyfriend unexpectedly stepped in. They were sleeping at a cheap hotel when we last left off, running out of money and options. I kept recording their actions, including their attempts to disseminate false information about me throughout the neighborhood. I was unaware that Elizabeth's girls had contacted their father to inform him of the terrible predicament their mother had found herself in. Michael, their father, is reportedly a prosperous Houston businessman. Over the years, he remained friendly with Elizabeth, focusing mostly on their daughter's welfare. He made the decision to step in after learning of Elizabeth's current predicament, that she was unemployed, effectively homeless, and complicit in a plot to seize my home. This developed in a pretty amazing way. Michael sent me an unexpected email last Tuesday. He said he was sorry to speak with me directly, but he needed to double-check certain information. What their daughters had told him was very different from what Elizabeth had told him. He was horrified by his ex's actions after our talk. Later on, I found out that Michael had been becoming increasingly alarmed as he saw Elizabeth's increasingly frantic social media messages. The last straw for him was learning that she had been applying for short-term loans in his children's names, which would have affected their credit scores. What followed was a masterclass in problem-solving techniques. Under certain restrictions, Michael volunteered to pay for their return to Houston. He made sure Elizabeth could resume her profession by setting her up for interviews with a number of real estate companies with which he had relationships. But in order to take advantage of these chances, she had to stop attempting to seize my belongings. The best part was seeing their meticulously crafted facade fall apart. Their social circle was informed by Michael that the story about them owning my house was a pure fabrication. In response to Elizabeth's social media posts about their family home, he even went so far as to write a kind but stern correction. After being humiliated by the revelation of his financial mishandling, my father eventually abandoned the facade. He acknowledged that their joint goal to buy my house had been a driving force behind the entire marriage. In a rare moment of candor during a phone call that I recorded with his consent, Elizabeth had convinced him that they could work together to coerce me into selling it to them or sharing ownership. Elizabeth's daughters, who felt bad about playing a passive part in the plot, exposed the depth of their preparation. They posted screenshots of group chats in which my father and Elizabeth talked about different ways to control me. Among these were Elizabeth's conscious attempt to be the ideal stepmother and their well-thought-out choice to make their marriage announcement right when they knew I was most lonely. Michael's involvement included accountability in addition to financial support. He offered to pay for their first month's rent and moving costs in Houston, but only after they agreed to stop communicating with me unless I asked them to and signed legal papers admitting they had no claim to my property. Their departure was telling. Rather than offering an apology, they utterly ignored their botched attempt to seize my house by sending out a mass email to friends and relatives, saying they were going back to Houston for exciting new opportunities. As if this wasn't a retreat in shame. Elizabeth even had the gall to share pictures of them departing with statements about closing chapters and new beginnings in the captions, along with hashtags for luxury living. Yesterday, my security cameras caught them making a final drive by my house. They didn't stop, but they did slow down for a moment. Their possessions were already en route to Houston after being transferred to a storage facility at Michael's expense. It has been surprisingly quiet since. My neighbors have been tremendously supportive as they have watched this drama play out. I became aware of how frequent these circumstances are after hearing several people relate their personal tales of family property disputes. Several individuals have apologized for believing Elizabeth's stories, and the local community which she attempted to infiltrate has come together in support of me. I've begun going to a support group for those who are coping with family separation. It's assisting me in processing the range of feelings involved in this circumstance, including anger at their attempted deceit, lingering sadness over losing the little relationship I had with my father, and relief from their manipulation. The house feels different today, serene yet not empty. I've begun remodeling in an effort to make new memories rather than destroy old ones. Now that Mom's garden is flowering once again, I've joined a local gardening club to learn the appropriate way to take care of her prized roses. Working in the same area where she experienced such delight is helpful. In fact, this experience has helped my career. I now have a very intimate understanding of how family dynamics can affect financial decisions because I work as a financial consultant. Although I don't share my personal narrative, I'm more suited to guide clients through comparable circumstances. I recognize the irony of having to deal with a financially reckless parent while working as a financial advisor. Mom was correct when she declared that the best investment was education. I was able to identify the warning signs in their behavior early on thanks to my professional experience. Regarding the future, I'm concentrating on establishing wholesome connections. My friends that supported me during this time have grown to be like family. Even the person I'm seeing is surprisingly more interested in my business than my belongings. I've learned from this experience that family is about respect, integrity, and sincere concern for one another's welfare, rather than about having the same DNA or legal titles. My mother was aware of this, which is why she took such care to safeguard my fortune. I want to thank everyone who read my tale and gave me advice. Your encouragement kept me going when I started to doubt myself. To people in comparable circumstances, follow your gut, keep a journal, and resist the need to compromise your limits out of embarrassment. Unless something important occurs, I don't anticipate posting any further updates. Now living in Houston, my father and Elizabeth are beginning a new life without access to my house or money. Every now and then, Michael updates me, mostly to make sure they're honoring their commitment to keep away. Mom would be happy with the way I handled this, not because I was tough, but because I upheld my morals and preserved the heritage she had worked so hard to leave me. That's what counts most in the end. Now on to the next story. Story 8. I said I love you to my husband after 5 years. My husband, 47M, and I, 46F, have been together for 18 years and married for 15. My husband is not the type who always shows his feelings. He is very stoic, smiles on very few occasions, and maintains a routine. Some even say that he is a robot, but I don't think so. I am someone who is very outgoing and completely the opposite of him. Before I was married to him, I was married to someone else who cheated on me. I used to say, I love you a lot in my first marriage, but after my divorce, I had some sort of aversion to those words. Over the last 18 years, we have said, I love you only 5 times. First time was when we were dating. Second was on our wedding day. Third and fourth when our daughter and son were born. And the 5th was 5 years ago on Christmas when we were really tipsy because of the drinks. I wrote a post about how I met him and how we got together, but it made me realize that we haven't said, I love you to each other for a long time. But it didn't bother me. Even if he never said it, he always shows that he loves me in his actions. He does chores for me. He would always give me a foot massage, make me my favorite dish, even kiss me out of the blue. I do not have any complaints. He is the best husband anyone could ever ask for. But this was something that has been in the back of my mind for a while. We cuddle, we hang out, we make love, but still no, I love you. I would love to hear it and say it more often, but somehow it just makes me nervous. I decided to buckle up and just say it. It's just 3 words. So yesterday, when he was reading a book on the couch, I stood in front of him and said, "I love you." He looked at me and was confused. I repeated it. For the first time, I could see him get flustered. He told me, "Okay." I was a little disappointed by his response. I thought he just didn't love me anymore. Later that night, when I was lying down, he came to our bedroom and told me that he was sorry for his response, that it caught him off guard. He told me that he loves me a lot, and not even a day goes by that he doesn't feel lucky to have me in his life. I was tearing up. That was better than my confession. I asked him why we don't say that often. He told me that he doesn't say it because throughout his entire life, no one has said it to him except for me. His parents were drug addicts who cared less for him. He had to start working at 14. He grew up in hardships, so saying, "I love you," is weird for him. But also he feels like we didn't have to tell each other when we express it with our actions way more. I told him I want to say it more now and want him to say it back if that's okay with him. I saw him smile for a while and he said, "It is fine as long as I want it. I don't think we need to say it when we know we love each other a lot. We will probably stop saying it after a few days and go back to our mundane events." A lot of you people have been asking me and personally messaging me about Jay's upbringing and how he managed to survive. Well, I am not sure if I'm the right person to talk about his personal life. I mean, I heard some parts which really made me cry. Therefore, I will try to summarize it. So, my husband Jay is an only child. His mom and dad were from a poor family. They were drug addicts. His household was a mess. He remembers his father pushing him down the stairs when he was like 8. Jay mostly grew up with his grandfather, his mom's dad. As far as I know, his mom was not allowed to come to his grandfather's house. Jay mostly spent his weekdays at his house. His mom and dad didn't care. They were always high and had odd visitors. His grandfather taught him a lot of things like handling tools, woodwork, electric repair stuff, ever since he was little. With some advice from his grandfather, he learned that his parents are very useless. He has to survive on his own. All they know is how to do drugs and invite people to have group sex. He started doing odd jobs like dog sitting, car and window washing, gardening. He also tutored from time to time. Shortly after his parents died of overdose, he became a permanent resident of his grandfather's house. He worked so that he could afford to go to college. His grandfather had little money for him, but it wasn't enough. He thought about joining the army at 18, but he failed the physical test. When he was 17, his grandfather died of a heart attack. His grandfather lived in a rented house, so Jay couldn't live there anymore. He was forced to live in a homeless shelter throughout his high school. He even got bullied and got in trouble for standing up for his bullies, but since he was a good student, he didn't face serious repercussions. He left the homeless shelter when a pastor from their local church took him in. He knew Jay because he worked in the church for a while. The pastor was a nice guy. He funded his living and also helped him get a scholarship to a good university. Jay studied finance and business. His entire childhood he lived in poverty, so he was obsessed with learning how to make money. He made some connections which landed him a good part-time job during his final year. I met Jay through my friend. She worked in the same company as him. He worked as an investment banker at the time, and the rest you all know. This is pretty much it. I understand why he is so stoic and doesn't show his emotions. I once asked out of curiosity that he saw the harsh reality of life, but still how he manages to stay good. He once told me about this couple whose children he used to tutor. They were a really happy family in his eyes. The husband loved his wife. He mentioned that the husband would always have a hand on his wife's body as a form of affection. Their children were also well-behaved and had a good childhood. From that moment, he knew he wanted a family like that because he never had a complete family. But he was sure that somebody would not be able to love him because he doesn't know how to show love. Throughout his entire childhood, He has only seen his parents fight and cheat on each other in front of each other. That really destroyed his perception of love. If it wasn't for that couple, he probably wouldn't believe that there are people in this world who can love each other for life. It is a little wrong of me to say he displays no emotions. He does, but on rare occasions. I remember the day our daughter was born. Jay held her and cried loudly. He kept repeating, "I will protect you. I will never leave you." He did say "I love you" to both me and her. Same thing happened when our son was born. I mean, it gave me an idea to just pop out babies so that I can see his emotional face, haha. But anyways, I know he does love me and our little family. He always holds me tight whenever we are cuddling. He is really good with my parents. My parents also adore him. Sometimes it just makes me cry knowing that he has been through a lot and I have lived such a sheltered life. Sometimes I feel like I don't deserve him because he is very kind and a good person. Also, yeah, we do say "I love you" a lot more now. Update. I just wanted to give big thanks to everyone who has been kind and supportive. I cannot imagine that so many people will come through because of my post. A lot of you suggested therapy. I did in the past, but my husband brushed it off by saying his past rarely bothers him. Thanks to people on Reddit, I suggested to him some articles on PTSD and childhood trauma. He studied for a bit and found a therapist for him to help him with his trauma. He only had 2 sessions till now. A few days ago, he came home from work, and I went to greet him like usual. He pulled me in for a big hug and started sobbing. I told him it's okay. We went to our bedroom where we sat down and talked. He told me that he was sorry for being so ice cold all these years. He opened up more and said he was afraid to confront his demons, so he just kept them back in his head. He had trouble expressing how he felt. He felt guilty that he didn't say, "I love you" more often. I am just mirroring what he told me. I love you with all my heart. I know I don't say it, but I feel it every day and every moment. I am sorry for taking away all those years from you, for not expressing my love for you. Words cannot express what you actually mean to me. You gave me my kids, made my house a home. I never had that growing up. I always wanted that, and you made it happen. I am sorry that I was so cold and never said, "I love you" more. Because I do. I love you a lot. I want to make it up to you. I don't want to waste another second of my life burying those emotions anymore. It feels good to see him vulnerable for the first time in his life. I cried with him that night. We talked a lot about our marriage and the times we spent together. It was a real bonding experience. From that day on, he has been really attentive towards me. He would always come home as early as possible to simply have more time with me. We cuddle a lot and also make love. Except this time it feels new and different, like a newfound love. He has been saying "I love you" to my kids. My son is confused, and my daughter just said, "Dad, you're weird." He is thinking about planning a trip for just the 2 of us because it has been really long since we had gone on a trip alone. So, thanks to Reddit, you gave me a new version of my husband and probably strengthened my marriage with him. Not that there were problems, but I hope my husband would not be so haunted by his demons now. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Caught my GF cheating with my childhood best friend, so I did this. My ex, 22F, cheated on me, 21M, with my childhood best friend, 21M. So here's my story about how I lost the love of my life, C, and my best friend, J, all in one day. It all started when I met C in grade 5, and I had a crush on her for years, never gaining the courage to talk to her or anything as I was just figuring out these feelings. Plus, I knew I was an introvert from the beginning, barely having any real friends besides a small group of 4, one of them being my best friend, Jay. We did everything a kid could do together. Go camping, something I didn't like but was fun with him. Play video games, board games, sleepovers, all those things, and thought of him as a brother. It was he who had the courage to add her to our friend group. We grew closer as we got older. It was only in grade 9 that me and C were starting to get closer as friends. During high school, when we were both in grade 10, I finally gained the courage to ask C out, and to my surprise and happiness, she said yes. Our first date was amazing as I took her out to her favorite restaurant, which wasn't really expensive but did have a big bill. Then we went skating as she has always loved that, and that was one of the best memories I've ever had. Over the next 4 years, we had the best relationship, or at least what I thought was the best. It was only during year 3 of our relationship that C wanted to go to the next level, and so did I, but I was just so nervous about it that I never realized what was happening between my GF and BF until it was too late. I was also stressed from the SATs that I didn't have enough time to spend with her either. It all came to a screeching halt when I not only passed my SATs, my nervousness about having sex went away with the letter, and I walked to her apartment to tell her the great news. I entered the elevator to go to her floor and walked to her door when I noticed it was open slightly, and so in a panic, I opened the door myself, not thinking straight and thinking she was in trouble, but found nothing. I walked around the apartment, but eventually I noticed the trail of clothes leading up to her bedroom door. If those weren't obvious, then the moans and screams of pleasure were. That was until I noticed a jacket on the ground, the very same one I gave Jay on his 18th birthday. I saw only red when I thought that and barged into the room where they were both shocked at my interruption. But C soon screamed in terror as I pulled Jay off of her and started beating him. I was never a violent person growing up, but this rage and betrayal turned me into someone I hope I could never be again. It's been 2 weeks since I caught Jay and C together, and I've been ignoring every message they sent me, every call and voicemail they made, and have even ignored their family's attempts at getting me to speak to them. I couldn't stand to be in the same room with them anymore. Every time I think of them, I just remember that day when I caught them. Hope you guys have any advice about what I should do next with them, because I don't know. Now on to the next story. Story 10. I'm getting married soon, but my best friend's partner plans to propose at my wedding. I asked her not to and we argued. Original post, February 21st, 2025. Hi, Honorable Judge Charlotte and Potato Queens and Kings. Editor's note. Nickname for Charlotte Dobe fans. I have come seeking your advice. I will accept my judgment. I got married in April. We got engaged at Christmas, but in January, my dad was given 5 months max after being taken off chemo for it not working. I will preface this by saying I never wanted the big white wedding. I am not a fan of being the center stage, etc. My best friend, 26F of 14 plus years, is the polar opposite of me. My partner and I have been super busy with work, so have allowed my parents to plan the wedding. His parents are out of the country on hollybobs, but have had input. My dad wanted a bigger celebration as this will be the last chance he gets to celebrate. I am obviously heartbroken and want to give him exactly what he wants. I chose my bridesmaids, and my partner chose his best man and groomsmen. My best friend is one of my bridesmaids, and my niece is my other. My bestie, from day one of being asked, has been finding dresses. Not a problem, I've said all along I just want them to feel comfortable so they can wear what they want. I am paying. Some of the dresses were questionable, but I honestly didn't have the heart to tell her. Men's suits were all chosen, and everyone was happy. A little side note here. My parents have never been a fan of my bestie. They think she's an attention seeker and a bit of a tart. They accepted my choice because they know I love her to bits. Last week, when we went to see my bestie, she had a baby recently, so I love going to see Bubba. She was saying, I think her partner, let's call him Paul is going to propose at your wedding, and getting all excited. She kept saying how she wanted it to be a perfect proposal and we have the perfect venue. That is true. The venue is stunning. On the way home from seeing her, I was talking to my partner and said that I didn't want him to propose at the wedding, as we were already celebrating a wedding and my beautiful daddy and didn't want to take away from that. I reached out and tried to explain this to my bestie. Her reply, if you are going to be a bridezilla, I don't want to be part of your rushed wedding. If you can't stand other people getting attention, you're really pathetic and need to get over yourself. Here I will input. Partner and I have been together 4 years. Her and partner have been together 1 year. Not that this is any sort of competition, but here is where I may be the bridezilla a-hole. My response. I'm truly sorry you feel like I've been a bridezilla a-hole. I've tried to be accommodating and as free-willed as possible. You've had your choice of dress, shoes, hair, makeup, accessories, which were all paid for by me, and we have accommodated bringing your baby, which of course we would as we love you. You know I don't like major attention, but this is my family, my friends, and they're coming to our wedding. If you're so desperate for the attention on you, perhaps it's best you're not there. I'm sorry that this hasn't worked out. I'm truly heartbroken. But this day needs to be perfect for my daddy. Her last response. I didn't respond, your dad's going to die. He won't even be here to give a shoddy opinion if we get engaged or not. Pathetic. I don't mind losing her over this. But I'm heartbroken and now thinking I may have been a bridezilla. Please help, potato kings, queens, and everyone in between. Op comments. So most of OP's comments include screenshots between her and the friend. I have transcribed them below. OP, all one text. Hey gorgeous. It was so lush to see you and Mr. Roman. He's gotten so big. Can I just air something that's really played on my mind? I absolutely don't want to upset you in any way. And you know I've given you and Savannah free reign with everything. From dress and accessories and everything. I also haven't asked you to pay for anything, so you've got a free room for the night and everything paid for. Basically, I'm just a bit hurt that you are planning on getting engaged at my wedding. It's a day that is less about me and more about my dad being able to celebrate with people that cherish him. We are already celebrating two things. The wedding and my daddy. I was just hoping you'd maybe ask Luke to not propose at the wedding. Friend. If you are going to be a bridezilla, I don't want to be part of your rushed wedding. If you can't stand other people getting attention, you're really pathetic and need to get over yourself. I'm truly sorry you feel like I've been a bridezilla a-hole. I've tried to be accommodating and as free-willed as possible. You've had your choice of dress, shoes, hair, makeup, accessories, which were sick, all paid for by me, and we have accommodated bringing your baby, which of course we would as we love you. You know I don't like major attention, but this is my family, my friends, and they're coming to our wedding. If you're so desperate for the attention on you, perhaps it's best you're not there. I'm sorry that this hasn't worked sick out. I'm truly heartbroken. But this day needs to be perfect for my daddy. Friend, your dad's going to die. He won't even be here to give a shoddy opinion if we get engaged or not. Pathetic. Edit. Same post, February 24th, 2025, 3 days later. I thought I'd update as a few common points. I no longer want this girl in my life, let alone the wedding. She's a vile human being. I have always been that one girl she gets at. I've never had much luck making friends, so I think that's why I've always accepted shitty treatment. Partner hates her and has hated her since they met. I am going to send a message and block. She's done. I'm not sure how to share SS, but I'll work it out. Update. So my partner and I reached out to him, Paul, asked him to meet in a neutral place. We chose the park near to his house. He agreed to meet us alone. Side note. We live about 2 hours apart since I moved out of my parents, and we moved to a different city. I travel most weekends to see my parents. I showed him the messages from the screenshots shown in my last post, and he was raging. Paul was so angry at what had been said, then turned to us and said, I actually wanted to leave her but was waiting until after the wedding so as to not ruin the day for you and your dad. We had a long chat. Paul and my partner have a lot in common, and he's always been lush to the both of us. We drove him home and left. Driving the 2 hours home, I felt relieved. I've never felt so stress-free. I had no one to try and please. And who needs an egg-sucking bridesmaid anyway? Paul rang when we got home. They've split up. She tried to deny the messages but didn't delete them from her phone. So he knew it was true. He told her he was repulsed and was planning on leaving after she'd been unkind to his mom. Also ill. Paul wants an amicable split with the baby, so we'll possibly get lawyers involved. My daddy is over the moon. He's heartbroken that I've lost pretty much my only friend, but he's so glad she's gone. He's surviving day to day, and we are giving him the best we possibly can. We took him suit shopping, and he looks absolutely incredible. My mom hasn't got her dress yet, but we are having a special girls' day out soon. Dresses, spa day, and just overall love. Major updates. Passwords with vendors. Paul is still coming, either alone or with a friend or someone else. He deserves a break. Paul is going to tell her parents, who are massively religious and massively strict and will not tolerate bullies. Now on to the next story. Story 11. My husband made me stop believing in soulmates. Now, after 15 years, he's finally opened up and strengthened our love even more. My husband made me believe soulmates aren't real. I am using a different account so that my husband doesn't know. Before meeting my current husband, I was married to my ex-husband, Dave. Dave and I met when we were 5 years old. He moved into our neighborhood when he was 5. He was this cute boy next door. We became inseparable. Even our parents joked that when we would be adults, we would be married. Ever since I knew the concept of marriage, I was determined that I would marry Dave. We were like soulmates. We had the same interests, the same hobbies, similar thoughts. He was my first everything. My first kiss, my first boyfriend, the guy I lost my virginity to. Among our friends, we were the perfect couple. After graduating high school, we immediately got married. I got into a good school, but I decided to study with Dave. We got married right after we finished high school. Our parents helped us find an apartment closer to our school. We worked hard. We would often talk about having kids. On our 6th anniversary, we decided that we would try for a baby next year. I still remember the day when we were teenagers and cuddling. We already decided what our babies' names would be. During our 7th year of marriage, my mom got sick, so I had to stay with her for a while. I was planning to do something special for our 7th year anniversary, so I left early to surprise him. I went to my bedroom and there I saw my husband sleeping with another girl in our marital bed. I can never get that image out of my head. My husband saw me and his face turned pale. I don't know what happened, but I threw up right on the spot. My husband was giving me the usual. It's not what it looks like. I am sorry. It was a mistake. I locked myself in the bathroom. I somehow mustered my strength and called my friend to pick me up and just don't listen to Dave. When my friend arrived, she charged at Dave. She grabbed some of my things and we left. I was in a catatonic stage at that point. Eventually, my parents knew. They supported whatever decision I would make. Dave's parents, however, wanted us to be together. There was a huge fight, but eventually we settled for divorce. My whole fairy tale fantasy just shattered. I was spiraling into depression. My parents booked me for therapy for 2 years. I was like a living corpse. After that, my friend pushed me to go on a date. I did, but no one even came close to Dave. I was searching for Dave in every guy, but they all failed to live up to the expectation. That is when I met my now husband, Jay. Jay was the opposite of Dave. Dave was funny, he would be the life of the party. I remember one time he made me laugh so hard that I fell from my chair. But Jay was not funny like Dave. He would use humor only as clapbacks and if he wants to insult someone. He was also very stoic and closed off, pretty boring to my taste. On our first date, I asked him some questions like, "What is your favorite movie?" He told me he doesn't watch movies, he likes reading. He didn't even ask me a thing except for my educational background. He talked mostly about my field of work, but he was not interested in me. We ate dinner in silence. I was 100% sure he would not call me, but 2 days later he did. He asked me out on a second date. I was skeptical of whether or not I should go, but my friend insisted I give it another try. Second date went slightly better than the first. He talked a bit more, asked a few questions. We were taking it slow. He was opening up until the 6th date when he finally hooked up. TMI, it was amazing. I am someone who has a snack after having sex. I was craving for some, so I asked him if I could grab something from his pantry. Even a bread and cheese sandwich will do. He told me to stay there and he went out. I was kind of confused. He came back after 20 minutes with takeout food. It was something I really liked, orange chicken. I asked how he knew. He told me, "You told me on our previous date." I melted right there. Dave and I have been together for most of my life, but he never made the effort of going out and get me something. That's when I knew, even if he was not my soulmate, I was madly in love with him. We dated for 3 years and got married. I came to know about Jay's family too. His mom and dad were drug addicts who died of overdose. He was homeless for a while but worked his way up. Throughout our marriage, I was very, very happy. He was different from Dave because whenever he would see me doing chores, he would ask, "Need help?" He helped me through my trauma from Dave by arranging a therapist that specializes in infidelity. He may not be a person of words, but his actions tell me that he loves me. When I was pregnant with our daughter, I would wake him up in the middle of the night to either get me food or rub my feet. He would say, "Yes, ma'am," and get to work. I love him. Even after 15 years of marriage, my love has not stopped. He is still the stoic man I fell in love with. After meeting him, I stopped believing in the concept of a soulmate. He was not mine, but we somehow made it work. I love you, Jay. Thanks for being there in my life. And anyone who is wondering what happened to Dave, he is getting his third divorce. His mom blames me for his downfall, but she refuses to see that her son cheated on his every marriage. Edit. I am sorry if there was any typing mistake. I am typing on my phone, and the autocorrect was acting nuts. I tried to turn it off, but it didn't work. Relevant comments. Commenter. Who knows? Maybe Jay is your soulmate. He seems to be more ideally suited to you from the beginning than Dave ever was. OP. From the outside, we do not look like soulmates. Dave and I were the typical girl next door and boy next door kind of people. Jay was more closed off initially. When I was dating him, he was really rude in my opinion. He also has a bad temper towards people who screw up. But other than that, he is good and kind. He helps those who genuinely need help. Commenter. After reading this, all I can say is EFF Dave metaphorically and EFF Jay literally in several positions. Then have a nice dessert. I'm glad to hear you are happy. Hope you, Jay, and your kids have many, many more happy years ahead of you. OP. EFFJ literally in several positions. Then have a nice dessert. I have been doing that for 18 years, LOL, and he still gets me snack. Commenter. His mom blames me for his downfall because it can't be the fault of her child being an immoral, faulty human being. Could it? I am poly. I have a different attitude to sex around a relationship, but promises are promises regardless. Commitment is commitment no matter what flavor, and Dave is clearly emotionally incomplete. I never believed in soulmates from childhood, but when it works, when it's right, you just had to have a trial marriage to refine your definition. OP. According to his mom, he was devastated when I wanted a divorce. She tried to convince me to stay with him even after knowing he cheated. She was angry at me and my parents when I said no. She blames me because she thinks that if I had stayed, her son would not have become a serial cheater because I could fix him. His other marriage failed because he was a mess because of me, not because he was sleeping with other people on the side. Commenter. Dave was never your soulmate. Jay was. Just took time to find him. OP. When I asked Jay about if he believes in soulmates, he told me, "I don't believe that crap. It's just like a horoscope. People believe in it because it makes them feel better. A lot of potential good relationships get broken because of this crap." I was kind of devastated that he doesn't believe in soulmates. Can you believe in these 18 years we have only said, "I love you" only 5 times, as far as I can count? I want to say it more. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.